Oh, you could just steal hosting back. Nice.
Wow. Well, no,
He's like, yeah, let me just.
Should be like it should.
Like,
be
wait a second, my mouse just moved on its own. How did you get there?
Oh, you've been hacked. Sorry, man. This has been my elaborate scheme to get you into podcasting.
My only defense of hacking is a piece of black tape over the camera, and I know when I take that off, it can hack my computer. So, are we recording?
We're recording now.
Okay.
So now we have ridiculousness. It's okay. I look like a lightsaber fight, and I'm like,
yeah, right. But they never actually clack together. So I was just waiting on them. Oh, there. Yeah, that's so funny how that.
This is great, Sean. It's been too long. We're finally doing this. We're finally doing a podcast.
Yeah.
What do we want to talk about?
Anything that comes to mind. We don't have a set subject matter.
Okay.
We don't have like we may eventually, you know what I mean? But
what was Mind Pump's first episode?
I don't know. So Mind Pump, but full disclosure, big inspiration of ours.
You can tell by our massive chest muscles.
Yeah, by our super big muscles. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think it was pretty. I just think in general, so me and Henry, we've been having conversations for a while, and whenever we used to live together in Minneapolis together, and whenever we would talk, like we get in these like hour-long conversations, and when Henry was still working for the banks, he'd be like, hey, he'd have these slick ways of being like, well, this has been great. Like, I got to go now. And it was like, not because it was like just a super engaging, conversations about stuff. So
I would much rather be talking to you than any of my work at the bank, because when I was working there, most of it was bullshit. I'll be honest with you. Like, it's like, this is the process. This is how it's done before. This is how you do it. I'm like, no, this sucks. Let's change it. Let's make it new. But it was a 65,000 employee company, and I'm a young person. I don't get a say in this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not willing to work 30 years there.
Culture, right?
Not at all.
Yeah. I always felt like in those corporate settings, like the culture, even if you do something to change the culture, like it probably bounces back. Like if you do something like where, like, I don't know, like you create some fun thing in the coffee room where when you have coffee, everybody goes, woo, after they take their first sip, and they like give people high fives because you're there. Like the second you're gone, and it's like the Matrix goes, and it just resorts back to, I hate my life, and they walk away, and you're like, damn it, I can never change this place except for temporarily,
I think you can only change it when you're there.
Right.
You're like able to facilitate conversation. You're able to ask good questions. You kind of can bring up those points. And I think that's one of those things, is being a younger person, like we're in our late 20s at this point. Yeah. Is growing up with computers and growing up questioning things. Yeah. Like one of the biggest skill sets I think we both have.
Questioning everything.
Also,
it's a philosophical endeavor to some degree.
Well, that's how growth happens. Like that's how you figure out what works, what's your comfort zone. Like I always love being like, okay, this is something that I'm okay at, or this is something I'm not necessarily good at, but like what's the next step that would make me a little bit better? Yeah. And like try it. Like I journal every day. And I'm right-handed, and I've been like adding probably like half a page of journaling in my left hand. And like it's ironic, my handwriting is actually better with my left hand.
It's more legible. I tell my girl, I was like, well, in a past life, like I had to write coded messages, so I just like I write really fast and scramble it. So apparently, I only wrote coded messages to my mom in a past life. Nobody else can read it. Yeah. So,
I've been told I should be a doctor like my whole life, purely and handwriting. Yeah. And I'm like, is this the standard we're setting for our medical establishment? You have bad handwriting. You should probably be doing surgery.
Before the name of the medicine was typed out, it's like I never knew what I was going to get when I went in. I never knew what I was going to get from the pharmacy.
The only person who can read the doctor's handwriting is the pharmacist.
Hopefully,
it's a little known trick. Well, hopefully. But to be fair, like, how much of our country?
It's like, wait, I've never taken my ADD medication in my mouth before. Wrong. It's like, you're like, I'm so angry.
Well, dude, they're actually giving you the wrong medicine. They couldn't figure out the handwriting.
I know
they're giving you straight steroids, bro. There.
I've never done better at school. When I get a bad grade, I just threaten the teacher. I get a good grade. I've had straight A's for a month. I'm so unhappy, but I'm so happy.
Well, that's how I felt at work, man. Like I was happy about a lot.
nice swing around.
But I wasn't happy.
That's how I felt at work.
My soul. My soul was dying every single day.
Yeah.
And it was challenging because like I got really into this yoga called Kundalini. And we've been talking about meditation and mindfulness and presence
dig
for a
into
long
it.
time. And like that's why I think we always have great conversations. It's like I'm with you right here, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not thinking about any of this other shit. I'm like, I'm with Sean. We're having a conversation. Right. And like yoga and Kundalini specifically for me has been like, that was a pivot point in my life.
Yeah.
It was when I got introduced to that by my younger brother. Me and him had just been fighting. It was like Christmas. It was like 3 years ago. We were out shopping for gifts and we were at Majors and Quinn down in uptown Minneapolis. And like, we're looking for books together, but then we were running late for the class. And like, I'm one of those people who's like, I'll be fine. Like the world.
I actually remember. Yeah.
And my brother was like, no, we got to get there on time. It's disrespectful. Like, I understand that. I do get it. But my energy was like, okay. So he ended up going to the class and like he set up a match for me. And I like thought about it. I was like, I might not go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's kind of bad, but like it was like that negativity. I was just like, I'm not feeling it. Yeah. And I ended up going to the class and he had like a mat laid out for me. It was all quiet and calm. And I showed up to Kundalini and I cried the first class I went.
Really?
I cried and I never cried. I'm one of those people who's always just like, what?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And it just triggered something. And like, I didn't quit my job right after, but I knew at that moment that I was going to quit my job.
Yeah.
And like, it's hard to explain. It's just like that intuitive gut.
Yeah. So I think, I wonder if it was just like, so like, I don't know, you know, when you make, I don't know if you ever make playlists, but like I've made like music playlists that like are called like Live It. And whenever I have a song that like hits me, like there's been multiple times in my life where I'm like, what am I doing right now? And I have like all these like emotions that I should be feeling. And I'm basically suppressing all these emotions. And I would call it like intellectual intuition. I'd call it as well, like emotions being a form of that. And it's like, I'm suppressing all that and I'm suppressing like this growth that I could be experiencing myself. And sometimes, it's the job. Sometimes it's like what you're doing day to day. But boy, I think for a lot of people, it's their job. I mean, that's where you're spending all this time week to week. And I've had that before, also spurred from lifting, actually. If I don't lift for a couple months, I go back and lift and I realize there's all these emotions and shit that I've been suppressing and it freaking hurts. So like that day I'm like, oh, and I have like all this like emotion I'm feeling. I do. I'll like song and I'll be like tearing up. I'm like, damn it. Like I knew this would happen.
It's your mind, body, your soul are connected. Like if you look at someone and someone's probably in really good shape, they're probably pretty intelligent. And that's such an opposite.
Yeah, I know.
Most people think. Most people are like, oh, they're strong. They must be stupid. And it's like, actually, no, because when you can have that neurobiological connection when you're working out, it triggers so much more. Mm-hmm. It triggers growth in so many other areas. And like, it's that ripple effect.
Completely agree. Yeah. There's also, I mean, like just the whole, like emotional intelligence behind working out. I mean, you have like some sort of outlet because for most people what most people in America don't work out or have any kind of like physical release.
I don't get that. How?
Job, right?
How?
To me, it's insane because like, it's like once but if they've never experienced it, then they don't really know. And I will say a lot of people, I think they work out for the first time or so and they're like, oh, I just feel terrible. Like, I guess we're probably spoiled because like when I work out, if I have it for a couple months, I mean, I'm still like going on hikes and doing stuff. So I shouldn't say I don't, but like do like a real, like a full lift session. I feel really good from it, like emotionally and cognitively. And I feel those effects almost like I'm high. And, I wonder if you haven't ever that you just feel like crap because you're like, I just hurt everywhere. And that's all you're registering. But, like your body doesn't know the difference between that. Everybody's probably heard this, between that physical stress and and cognitive stress, but like the things you're stressing about is not, your ancestors would not be stressed. None of this would make sense. So they're just like, they're like, why would you be stressed about that? You're like, you throw spear through animal, you eat, you're happy with tribe. Like, not that it wasn't intelligent.
You conquer a woman. You see,
yeah, like your woman, you conquer, your woman's loyal, like the tribe will live on because you trained other hunters, and you have legacy. Like, what more could you want, right? And that'd be fair. That's like fair. Like I don't know. So I just think if there was some kind of actual stress, it's like, it's almost always something you can physically overcome, or you need to go find food, or you need to go do something. Because like probably for most of our evolution, that was the stressors. Is like also social stressors. I think was probably always there. I think we underestimate like how smart humans always have been, or for a very long time, maybe with social intelligence and like tribal stuff. But
I think it's gone downhill for the most part.
Oh yeah, I think we're less socially intelligent.
We're pretty, and I think not as much social media is so bad about it too.
Yeah,
because like I look at I have a Facebook. I'm a big fan of Facebook necessarily at all, not at all. But like the things I follow are all like positive, inspirational, high vibrational energies. They're like, I read it and it's basically like, be the light, shine the light you want to show, like live your best life, like positive messages. And I'm a big fan of affirmations, and I've been using prayer beads more and more recently. And basically there's 108 prayer beads, and every single time you go through the bead, you say the affirmation. So the one that I'm working on is I'm saying, I'm a master communicator. I'm a master communicator. I'm a master communicator, because I think that communication is a skill that I think we both have. And it's being able to empathize with people. It's being able to realize like, I am not you, but I understand that you've lived your own life just like I've lived my own life. And like that heart and like that, it takes self-love to be able to put yourself in someone else.
Yeah, to see yourself in another.
And that's the hardest part. Yeah. That's the biggest challenge I think for humans in general.
Yeah.
Because we don't know necessarily what makes us happy, because we're looking at all these external people, external feedback, external world to tell us what makes us happy. Like I get so frustrated, especially with women. I'm like, you're beautiful. You don't need all this makeup. You don't need to go do all this stuff. Like you're perfect the way you are. And when you get that, and when you realize that, that's when like love happens. That's when you can love everyone anywhere you go. And
well, I think a ton of women now are getting that, where like, I mean, I say, so when I was thinking, like, if I think back towards like high school, right. Or like before, like all the messaging that women ever had was, it's like very, you got to be aesthetically pleasing. Like, and you derive self-value based on external opinions of you. And it's really brutal. Right. And now I think all women like have heard the other side of it and whatnot. And since I'm not a woman, I haven't experienced that firsthand as much. But I think men are experiencing a version of that now. Like it's different, but it was always like what you have, what you can get as a guy, like, your power, your reach, your influence is always kind of subliminally put into men. Like that makes you more of a man, and you're not valuable unless you have this reach and stuff. Right. And we're really like, I on the light side of things, I believe that like any kind of reach or power that you end up having is really based on like intrinsic value that you have for yourself. I mean, that's like where you feed like the strength there. I would argue that there's a flip end of that where basically that it's like in sales. I think we talked about this. Like, so I've been in sales for a long time. And so like, I always say like when I did a lot of sales training, it was like, there's dark side and light side. And I try to teach the light side where it's like transparency, and with that transparency and honesty, like people just like really trust you. And then with that also, you have to hold yourself accountable. Don't get behind products or sell things that you don't believe in. But there's like this dark side where people are like, they're like, I read like a 900-page book about neuro-linguistic programming and hand signs to influence other people's cognition. And like, I like have never been on that side of it. But like, so when I hear like, so I'll like when I talk to a salesperson and I know they've read all this shit, and it's like, I feel this like icky, like pull of like draining energy and manipulation. And I'm like, and like, that's
it's a real thing though, because the problem with the neuro-linguistic programming is how you frame it for yourself, because all it is essentially is how you react with your own thoughts. And to me, and there's a lot of high level stuff because
that is, I think, more high level stuff where the low level end is like when you move your hand like this, it means this. And you'll see the salesperson going like, but and they do this thing, and you're like, why do I feel drawn in by this weird person?
I'm just gonna take up space. I'm gonna be my masculine energy.
Yeah, right.
And the thing is, like, the same way, man.
But that side of things, I always argue they can't sell to like high-end business clients. Like they can't sell to a business owner who looks at that person, and the second they look at them, they're like, they're full of shit. Like you're just a little manipulator. Get out. And like, because I feel that way the second I see those people, and these business owners that have built a lot bigger things than me, worked with a lot more people. Like they're leading over like 50 people, and their company adores them. Like that person's like they sneeze and the person's out the door. You know what I'm saying? Totally. And so to me, like. But being that light side, if you're not transparent and honest, like with bigger clients. So I think the reason people keep doing that in sales is because it works with like, but all you're doing is it's a numbers game and you're fishing for weakness in people, and people walk away not feeling good because they're like, oh, I got manipulated again.
Well, the thing that's hard about it too, though, is what situation are the people who are being sold to in when they're being sold? Like, what if you're an older person? Like there's a recent South Park episode I saw where basically it's the buy gold episode.
Oh, okay. I haven't
buying gold, but then they're trying to sell the gold to these jewelry companies that would then repackage it and sell to old people. So like they call these old people, and like it's Stan's grandpa. And they call him, and like he wants to impress Stan. So he buys him this like $10,000 necklace to give to his grandson, so his grandson will think he's valuable because.
Oh my God!
You know what I mean? It's very dark. It's
right.
Unfortunately, in our world, especially in the West, especially like America versus Eastern countries, we lose that relationship with our elders, with our parents, and like bringing this full circle. The challenge with all that stuff is they're selling to these people because these people are vulnerable for reasons that they're taking advantage of.
Right.
And that's the hard part.
And it's not like taking advantage of that is not like a learning lesson for them 99% of the time.
No.
It just reincurs like it being more difficult for that person to understand why people are taking advantage of them. Like I think it clouds them even more. And that's why I think it's, that it's so horrible. But I will say that kind of like for lack of a better, explanation, that kind of dark side of like communication is really what it was, because I compared it to sales, but it's communication. So like it just sucks, and I don't think it brings the person that does it to other people like happiness,
No.
Something I wanted to touch on was, so when you left the bank working for banks, so I was thinking about that environment that we were talking about where like it ripples back right to like once you leave, whatever culture you brought is kind of gone.
There's some powerful stuff that happened in my position after I left, man.
Really?
Yeah, like I worked on a pretty small team. I loved all my coworkers. Like I shared with them.
That's how you are. That's how Henry is.
That's how I am. Like I love people.
He is.
I love strangers. That's something I love sharing. I love being vulnerable, and it's been hard because over the years I've done the manipulative shit. I did it, and like I'm not necessarily proud of it, but it was one of those things. I was looking for my own self-love, and in that process, I thought that meeting people would be a way to go around that, but it's backwards. But since my departure from my team, actually, there's 5 people on my team, and I won't go with names or anything, and I won't say where I worked right now.
Right.
But one of my coworkers left pretty recently after I did to a different role. Mm-hmm. So then they ended up having to replace me and having to replace him. And the thing that's hard about these things is when that's happening, it's stressful for everyone else in the team because they have to deal with the fallout of training new people who aren't necessarily like, I'm sorry, the person who replaced me is like, he was a nice man, like the exact opposite of me. Like, older, quiet, good worker. Not me.
Not me.
I'm not saying I'm not a good worker. But
emphasis on good worker. I totally get it.
I had challenges at work. I would show up late some days.
Yeah.
I would show up at 9 o'clock.
Well, I remember you and
I show up at 11 sometimes, but I got pissed off because I'd stay up and I'd be working till like midnight the night before.
Yeah. You got your work done every week because I remember you and our other roommate could work from home a lot with a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I remember, and I worked a job where I did sales in labor. I worked for a green carpet cleaning company at the time. So you know, it was a little different because I had to be there. But I remember, like, you guys still got your work done every week, but it was
half of what I did. And this is something. So I ran a lot of code, and I'm not necessarily the best programmer in the world, but I've learned a lot by experience, and I can read it pretty well. But I'm in this big corporation that doesn't invest in technology. I'll be honest. Like, I was running computers that I had in my personal life like 10 years ago. And I'm running millions of lines of code. So I basically sit there, run the code. My computer can't handle anything else. So it just couldn't. So like a lot of times I work from home and I'm running code, and I'd run the code and my computer would just sit there. And like, I do things on the side, like I'd read a bit, but then like, hey, I go work out. And like, that sounds bad because I was working, but I could only do so much with the resources I had. And to bring it back, one of my coworkers passed away.
Holy cow. Okay.
He died of a heart attack at 36.
Was that the guy that you were helping the most? Like, he was like the lead of that group?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't the manager. He was brought in probably a year and a half after me. He was a more senior role.
Okay.
The team I worked on is
and he worked for the bank before.
Yeah, he worked in the bank.
Okay.
He had
gotcha.
Experience, MBA. He's a very smart guy.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from him. He reviewed some of my work, and we worked together a little bit, not a crazy amount, just because we all kind of had our own segments, but then we worked together on different projects.
Yeah.
But he was a father. He had a 2-year-old. He left behind a 2-year-old and a wife, and I'm almost positive it was stress. Like I could tell meeting with him, and I feel I'm one of those people who kind of feels a little guilty. Like obviously I didn't cause him to have a heart attack.
Right.
But series of unfortunate events, like I left this role with a pretty small team and a very like visible role. Like I dealt with some pretty high up people in the bank, and I had a lot of exposure and a lot of opportunity. And I came in and I wanted to change the place. I was like, okay, I need a better computer. I want better technology. Let's automate processes. And how a lot of these big companies work, and I'm sure Zero Res was like this for some time, is they have a process. And you follow the process because the process is what works before for other people in that environment. But obviously, if you have people who understand how to improve the process, that's valuable for the team moving forward.
Very valuable, yeah.
So a lot of what I did was I basically tried to automate a bunch of spreadsheets where I have to run these every quarter or every month for financial statements. And instead of spending 40 hours, I'd rather spend an hour.
Right.
So I'd like build things that would help automate the process. And I loved it because it gave me free time to go on like Harvard resources and like go through education classes that no one took advantage of because every single person says I'm too busy to do anything else.
Yeah.
And we all have the same amount of time, man. You make what you want out of it. Like, I don't know. I'm a backwards person, man.
I think in those big companies too. I'm just throw this out there because like one thing that I learned is like, so I was always the kid too that wanted to come in. And I'm like, I wanted to change things. At a younger age, it was like it's always arrogant when you come in and you're like, I'm going to make all this better. But if you don't have that little bit of arrogance, confidence, like then you're never going to be the person that does that.
No, you won't be a leader ever.
But the thing is, for me, it wasn't like I wanted to change things for like some ego thing. Like it really wasn't. It was like that's just how I always rolled. Like in night games as a kid, like I'm gonna make it better. Like our team's gonna be the best, you know. Like I was always like that. Like we're gonna figure it out, dude. We're gonna hide in those bushes. We're gonna scare. You know, I always figured that out, and everybody's like listening because they're like they know when some crazy person's talking that it actually might work.
You should listen to that person.
Everybody intuitively knows it, right? Like, but I will say in a big company like the banks that you work for. Boy, that's got to be tough. And I know that would drive me crazy. So like even it drove me a little bit crazy in the green carpet cleaning company that I work for in Minneapolis. It's the biggest franchise in the country. And they're like it's the most successful carpet cleaning company for residential anyways in the country. And they have technology they really do have the best product. It's great.
I still use it, by the way.
Yeah, dude. It's freaking awesome. But I remember like I was feeling frustrated. But what happened is I had a great leader that was over me. And I don't know why. Like I didn't report directly to him or anything. But like one day I used to smoke cigarettes. So I'm smoking a cigarette outside. And it was kind of before I got onto like a health kick for the last like 4 years or so. But I was smoking a cigarette and he comes out, and I don't remember what happened, but I just remember like we had some conversation, and I just realized that, oh, like he didn't teach me sales. So most people that he would teach them sales and take an interest in them while they were becoming like a field guy. And then he would like take them and work with them later. Mm-hmm. But like, I don't know. I was probably, in the top 3 every month out of like 50 technicians or something like that. You're
naturally charismatic.
Yeah, and the sales, and I was in sales before that too. But when I was in the sales I was in before, which I won't get into now, was I worked for myself. So nobody taught me sales. Like I just did sales, and so I didn't. So actually, I didn't like a lot of the sales training that I had and I just did. So when I got done with sales training, I don't recommend this for most people, because for most people, that everybody that I've trained, I've never met somebody who I think could have just come in and done sales their way and it just worked out for them. Like I've probably trained, in the hundreds. And so I'm like, but everybody thinks that like they're going to come in and do their thing.
I think that.
Right. Everybody thinks that, and rarely are you actually the person that could just do your own thing. But in the sales training that I got, I absorbed like 20-30% of it. I was like, I am going to say stuff like that because it lines up with the way I like selling. But I didn't even really realize I was a salesperson yet. But realistically, I'd been doing sales for like 5-6 years before that.
We're all doing sales all the time.
Right.
Our lives are sales.
Yeah, it's just communication. So basically, I keep hitting it hard, and I got lucky in a company that like, because every company is like this, like they're not going to change their ways, and you're not going to come in and change them until you earn like leadership. And part of leadership,
and this is kind of what bothers me though, because a lot of the people who have made the biggest changes in the world are the people who said, screw it, I'm going to go do it on my own.
Correct.
And start over. And dropped out of college, dropped out of grad school, doesn't have a PhD. I'm not discrediting people who have those credentials. Like,
right. No, by all means. Yeah.
There's a difference, I think, between being an independent entrepreneur and like, I'm going to make this happen. This is my dream. This is my goal. Let's do it. And versus I want to follow this prescribed path of success.
Right. Well, walking away, taking risks and challenging yourself. Like here's the thing. If you've taken the safe path your whole life, and then somehow after 25 years of work for a corporation, they want you to be in a bigger leadership position, not just like a team lead, but they want you to be in a bigger leadership position. But you've taken the safe path the whole time. You're going to look at the decisions that you're making for that company, and you're going to you see all the fear, because that's your decision-making process in your whole freaking career. So you're not in a position, like mentally, cognitively, you haven't challenged yourself to make tough decisions for the company that might take a toll. And the worst case is like, you might lose your position for making the wrong choice. Well, you shouldn't be the leader then, because that's part of being the leader. Is you're the one that takes the blame.
This is you're
not in a position by taking the safe career to then be the CEO of a company. No, and you wonder why these smart companies are hiring the guy that's only been here for like 2 years that came in hot and is like, what the fuck does this guy know? And you're so angry about it, but guess what? He doubled the revenue in 2 years for you guys. So. And you wonder why. And these like the safe path.
He had the courage to bring up his views.
Courage, man.
And that's one of those.
And be willing to take the risk for like some kind. Because like the thing is, you may be in a safe position under the umbrella of this company, but the company's never in a safe position. They're always competing with the market. They're always fighting. They're always battling the front. And like you may think like okay, in the company I work for, like it's like, oh, we're the front of it. Like we're the face of the customer. Everything like we're on the front. I used to say you're the point of the spear to the people I train, because it's like 99% of what they know about us, or 95 is your representation of us, because you're in homes doing sales and working on homes and stuff.
You're consumer facing.
But at the same time, if something goes wrong, the company takes the brunt of it. The company takes the hit in revenue. The company takes the hit in reputation, and you still get assigned your little route every day, your safe job where you're going to make at least, $180 a day. Right. And it's like, so people that like work for companies, they don't understand like the risk involved. And I do think like going and working for yourself is actually one of the best things you could do for a few years before going back and expecting to be a greater leader for a company. Because that company will look at you, and especially the owners will look at you and be like, okay, you know what it's like to take the risk for yourself and like potentially lose everything, or know that you could if you make the wrong calls, or you don't do things right, or you don't have the right discipline. and I'm just throwing it out there for people, like if you're ever in a position out there where you're like complaining about somebody, like, why is this person leading or whatever, like there's always a reason why they're leading. And if like there's always, and I'm not saying it's a good reason, there's always a reason. Now, the thing that I really learned is if a company doesn't have a great leadership system, work for a different company. Don't support them. Don't put your 40 hours a week and your mind numbing.
Most people won't do that though.
Yeah, most people won't. But
most people go home
actively try to work for a company with better leadership. Because if you think you're a good leader, and whether you are or not, who knows, right? Because, you know, if you think you're a good leader, though, if you truly are and you have potential to be, you will not be recognized and brought up in a company with bad leadership because they don't recognize that. And what you see, if you don't know whether your company has good leadership or not, everybody wants it to, you know, a lot of people do anyways. If it's political, if the positioning is highly political, if who gets chosen for a job, if you're like sitting there like saying like, oh, you all know that this guy would have been really good, but this person got chose because they are friends with this person.
It's always like that though.
It almost is.
What areas besides, I would say sales maybe.
There's always some politics and stuff, but
politics isn't everything.
Well, I guess I'm spoiled because in sales companies, it's like,
numbers
a really political player usually doesn't have the best sales.
But to be fair, though, you can actually do better being a political player because you get assigned the higher valuable routes that are more likely to get you a return.
True.
Could give you better. I'm not saying it's
no, that's true. That's true. Because what he's referring to is like these like routes you get given that like they have higher potential for basically crushing it that day. That's true, but at the same time, like higher leads. But other leaders know, like when I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, if this guy has a 40% upsell and he's on great routes, and this guy has a 35% upsell and he's getting given horseshit routes, I know who's the better salesperson, and I know if I switch them,
but the numbers
this person's going to be lower.
The numbers don't though.
They don't. Well, the numbers kind of don't lie, but that's the one side of it that's like a little bit intuitive. But in general, it's like over the course of the year, if you want to know who the best salesperson is on your team, give them all equal opportunity and see who does the best.
Oh, okay. I love you said that because we live in this world right now. And
like you can do it for only like 2 weeks, like because I know you don't want to take a hit to the company because you want the best salesperson with the best.
What you said a second ago, Sean. Let's stop for 1 second.
Yeah.
Because I think this applies to a lot of what's going on in our world right now. You said equal opportunity. I agree. Equal opportunity is like the most important thing. I think that's where a lot of our systems are breaking is because –
and that's where that politics
we don't have equal opportunity.
Yeah, that's political groups don't like not political groups like I'm not talking about like politics. I'm talking about like using the word political as like
I'll be honest, it turns into
conniving.
For me very quickly.
Conniving. Yeah, well,
because I look at politics as an example of these two philosophies, and like I grew up very liberal. And I say that in a way because I grew up. My parents volunteer. My parents have. Treat others the way to be treated. They give back to the community. They've always gone above and beyond their own, like, what they need to do.
Right.
They've always done. Right. They've been painting hallways at the elementary school I went to. They've been helping. My mom used to plan every single Winterfest, which is like our carnival for our school. It was a big fundraiser. Like
those are great liberals, man. Like when they're doing things.
Yes, they are great liberals, and I love them. But I grew up
that's like classic, like incredible liberals, like right there.
Yes, and my parents have worked really hard. They've sacrificed a lot, and like here I am, the oldest child who left his really good job. Who had all the things you want, healthcare, benefits, 401k, good set, all those checklist items. And it comes down to why I'm actually becoming more, not necessarily conservative, but more, I'd say libertarian because of this idea. I believe in equal opportunity. I think I don't care about your race. I don't care about your religion. I don't care about your gender. And I say that not because I'm distinguishing you from other people, but I don't like those classifications of people. I think they serve no purpose. Humans.
It's like if you want to break it down into something simple, like for me, the way I looked at it early on, especially, was like getting to know people and like seeing potential in them. Like look for the greatest potential that you see in them, and then step back and reassess that, like non-biasedly, but really believe in them. Let yourself believe in them and see the greatest potential, and then step back and see what you see, because you can compare people in that way.
Sean, real quick, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, continue. Yeah.
With that, so equal opportunity,
Yeah.
Can we agree equal opportunity?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
We're on that equal opportunity.
I completely, because you'll never find out, like, you'll never find out who can be great. And I think there's a lot of people, especially in like the millennial generation. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if even more so coming up, but I think millennial leaders will be great at, like, there's a lot of things millennials we didn't do right, like, and we're not great at. But I do think giving people an opportunity. I know it never is for any generation, but it's
subconscious stuff with
right. But once you're aware of it, it becomes your responsibility as an individual to be,
totally,
to grow.
Totally.
So for me, I hold myself really accountable because I feel that, once I'm aware of something, like, that's now my responsibility to produce growth in myself or challenge myself to basically, okay, so there's a lot of millennials that are very entitled. Well, I will say when I first started working for a green carpet cleaning company, I had that. Like, I was like, I should, like, it wasn't like I should be running the teams. It's like, it was the opportunity I felt really entitled to. I will say I felt very entitled to it, but looking back, then I grow and I get into like leadership positions. I lead teams, and then I go and what I ended up doing is I started franchises and built teams in different states for them, and built like their commercial sales departments and stuff. And then I had guys that I'm training. I say guys because it's a very male driven industry when I was in. So I'm looking forward to, I've been like, I just didn't, because 95% of applicants were male. So like for every 10 guys I trained one woman. Right. But it wasn't like by choice or anything. It's just like, that's literally the ratio of applicants was evened out at my franchise anyway. So basically, where was I going with that? So for equal opportunity, it's like, later I trained people and I realized that there was this entitlement for opportunity, but I like had to talk to them, but I was much better at communicating this because nobody did with me. Like, well, you have to earn your opportunities as well. So like, I understand that you're talking about leading teams, but this is like your third week that I've been training you. Yeah. And you're not even going to be hitting average sales yet. And you have to lead by example. And if you're in any leadership system that I put together, you're going to be leading by example first. So like, you can't go around your team asking for higher sales or for like dealing with customers better. And also nobody's going to listen to you. So you could politically be put in a position and then talk to them about sales, but everybody knows. And I've experienced this. I've seen this where I look at a team that I built, look at a guy talking about sales, that got put in a position for political reasons. That's in the room in the meeting for political reasons from an owner that ended up, like, it is a good company. So actually he ended up getting pushed out. Both the owner and the other one, he got bought out.
So you're real quick, Sean, you're telling me that you're dating these different people,
right?
Equal opportunity. And they have different outcomes.
Yeah.
So same opportunity, different outcomes.
Same opportunity, different outcomes.
And this was where I'm in a circle.
You also have to earn opportunity, right?
So I agree.
Okay. Because I think that's one thing millennials do wrong is they just think they should be given it.
Well, we were told our whole lives that
opportunity is not the same as right. It's not the same as equal, because equal is like, look, does anybody around you? Are we just giving it to them? No. Okay. You got to stand out. You got to hit your, like, a lot. Because I noticed a lot of millennials that I train, like, they want bigger opportunities before they even crush it at their current role. And I'm a millennial training millennials, and I saw that a lot. So like, I just wanted to put that little buffer on what equal opportunity, kind of defining equal opportunity a little bit from my perspective.
It's a general term too, and that
it is
kind of complicated, but like the full circle I want to bring it is, this is where I'm challenged, is because a lot of our political world wants to have equal outcome. They want everyone to make the same amount of money, no matter how good they are at their job or how much good they are at sales. And to me, that's just backwards, because it's impossible. It is impossible. Yeah. And that's just kind of my frustration is it's hard because you can't.
There's so many factors you can't quantify about human beings. So the thing is, it's mutually unfair for everybody. And that makes it fair. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not fair. But like, it
is fair.
How many
go to the library?
Right. It's freaking fair. Like, read about history. It's fair. Like people are like, oh, I don't have opportunity. I don't have this. I came out of college during the housing market collapse, and they didn't even realize like how big of a deal that was for like 7 years. And they're saying it's not fair. It's like, well, it's not even like you came out of college knowing that was a big deal for most people.
And I guarantee you didn't learn about why it happened in the first place either.
Right. And then they're like, it's not fair. It's not fair. It's like, but you and 99% of people are saying it's not fair. And then that 1% of people who knows it's not fair but doesn't care because they're going to make the best out of whatever they could do tend to succeed more in whatever they do. And, I just read that thing the other day. It's this a little plug. Not that it was worth much yet, but
well, it came in. We have like 10 million views in the first 3 days. Let's be fair. Look at our glasses and hat lights.
There's a Snapchat story called Shower Thoughts, and it's so ridiculous. Like, it was like, dude, this is like what I did back in stoner days, is have stupid thoughts like this, right?
They're not stupid, though. They're not stupid.
They're not. But some of these are really smart, and some of them are comedic. But one of them was like, if it's unfair for everybody, doesn't that make it fair? And I was like, bingo!
An enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Well, and even I will say with the political side, so like I don't like highly political environments because they get very volatile, and people are not happy in highly political environments. And it's in my opinion, and from a lot of books that I read, I'm open if people disagree, but it's worked for me. Like thinking about it this way, navigating through companies is if it's highly political, it's a sign that it doesn't have good leadership. Because when a strong leader comes in and is actually leading a branch or a team of people, like 20, 50 people, like the politics start dissipating. And I saw this in franchises coming in. Like we bought out a franchise. I wasn't one of the owners, but part of my job was going in and turning that franchise around. And from what I heard from the technicians that existed and from the previous owner that we had to work with for a couple of months, is like very political. Like even with how they work with customers, it's like very favoritism and stuff. And dissipating that, there was a lot of growing pains, but like it's because there's not strong leaders that like really care about people, at service to people. So everybody gets really politically charged because nobody knows what it takes to become a leader because they don't have a freaking good example of what it takes. Once you have a great leader, everybody looks at that person like, well, you just got to be more like Chris. That was one of my mentors. That was my main mentor in the company I used to work for, and bless him because he plucked me out of the crowd and was like, I'm going to work on you. I had no idea why. And I felt really blessed from day one about it. And maybe not as much as I should, but basically I developed, and like, that guy just took me and developed me. So like what I did later is like, I'm going to take people and develop them because I want to give it back tenfold, and he instilled that, like, and that's like part of great leadership is like, you're always at service. Like you never arrive in a leadership position like, oh, I finally got the manager job. Now I get my privileges. It's like, nah, now the real work starts. Yeah. And people, the hardest thing about people, everybody knows it. Like when they're like, no, man, I don't want you to come and help me with this because like you always do this stuff. Like that's when your team's like giving back to you. Like you don't get to take privileges. Your team gives you them with their attitude and because of what you've done for them. They're like, no, I'll handle it. I know you're on vacation. I don't want you to deal with it, man. They give it to you. You don't get to decide the privileges that you get. Your team decides what privileges you've earned as their leader. You know what I mean? And you show up at service to them. And for me, because of all the miscommunication about what leadership is, the easiest way to break it down to like how you got to roll every day if you want to be a leader, show up. And this is even if you're not technically a leader in position, because you can lead without being in the position. That's actually where it starts. You show up and you think about how you could be at service to your team. That's it. It's super simple. That's your daily action, your daily meditation. And I will say, for people that are trying to get a leadership position, like generally those people, they're not like natural leaders. Like, I want to be a leader. I want to be a leader. It's like, it's very self-driven. But being a leader is not about you. It's about your team. And when you start showing up for your team every day, everybody starts listening and people start following and they have respect for you. And when you're a manager and you're like, well, they don't do what I say. I got to figure out well, that's because you haven't done shit for them. And maybe you have, maybe you think you have, but you might be deluding yourself because it doesn't matter if you think you have. It matters if they feel that you've done shit for them. So when you show up and you do shit for people, they give it back. And that's like, you just trust in that because people do. Totally. So it's like when people are like, we don't know how to get this person to do this. We don't know how to get this person to do this. It's like, well, maybe they're not listening to you because you haven't done shit for them yet. You haven't shown up in service for them. You're being a manager.
This is natural law.
Yeah.
You reap what you sow. The more you give, the more you get. And it's like your energy. It's like when you show up to do your sales, Sean, you're one of those people who brings your energy to that environment. You can tell, even speaking with you, is you're sharing.
I try to be at service to the person I'm working for. So it's like I'm trying to be a leader for them too, right? But it's like I'm just humbly at service for the person that I'm actually selling to. And fortunately,
wins.
Yeah, I will say some. Yeah, it's great, and fortunately, like, you know, I do think like some sales companies are tough to work for because they need you to hit certain numbers, and then and they're not providing you customers that you basically, to hit those numbers, you have to make sales that aren't always in their best interest, which sucks. But I will say, going back to equal opportunity, you're responsible for that, working for that company, because that company's giving you everything on a silver platter. You're being a sales farmer, not a sales hunter. So go out and find your own leads and find your own people if you want to sell with integrity and transparency, and just find better people to sell that product to or whatever. But that equal opportunity is, yeah, it's like, so I'm gonna wrap it and then I'll close this. But like, it's like people think they don't have equal opportunity, but it's like you have the opportunity, like with whatever company you work for, to show up and be at service to your team. Like, they may not give you the position, but you can show up and be at service to people and do things for your team, and your team will reciprocate. And people that say like, oh, they don't, like, that's just a bad attitude. Human beings reciprocate when you do it. They appreciate it. And if they don't, then don't complain that they don't appreciate it. Lead by example and tell them that you appreciate them and you appreciate everything they do. And I guarantee you, within a couple of weeks, they'll start saying how they appreciate things that you do. Yep. Like, you're not, you're people that like complain that they don't have opportunities. Is like, I feel that a lot of times it can be selfish. I will say there's things that where people don't have opportunities, but when you get into your 20s, it's like, look, you had those opportunities, and if you don't feel you have them now, it's time to start earning them and finding them. You know what I mean? Like, what did you do yesterday to find opportunities? What did you do today? Instead of like, I don't get them because I'm this or I'm that. It's just victim, right? It's like stop playing a victim, because that attention.
Opportunities everywhere. And from a sales standpoint, like, you can be selling when you're not selling.
Right.
And that's something that's kind of counterintuitive. It's like, this is why networking is so important. This is why those network channels are valuable, because like I go to I went this morning to the dog park with my roommate's dog.
Yeah.
And I was literally at the dog park, and I was like throwing a tennis ball for her, and she's a beautiful Vizsla, just wonderful dog, just fast and has fun. But she also doesn't like to share the ball sometimes. And it's not my dog. So there's like there's a little bit of a, you know what I mean? I'm the boss, but I'm not quite the boss.
Right.
I ended up like playing with some other dogs, and I was like, some dogs were barking at me, and I was like running in circles, barking at other dogs. And I was having a blast. It was enjoyable. Like,
right.
And I ended up talking to a woman, and she was probably 60, probably mid 60s, and we were talking, and she's selling her house.
Okay.
I'm selling my house, so we have
something to talk about. Yeah.
But then she also used to work for U.S. Bank, which is
really?
Where I used to work.
Yeah, that's where Henry used to work.
And so it was interesting because we were having some of these conversations about people within the bank. And then we got onto some things that are more my speed of where I'm in right now, which is I believe a lot in alternate assets, and I have very contrary investment ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to her about this, and it's one of those things you don't normally have a conversation about money with people you just meet. It's one of those taboo topics, and like, it's sales in general.
It's becoming less taboo, but
it's becoming less because pretty much everyone's got.
But she's 60 years old. It's still taboo in her generation. Like,
totally. And I was saying some comments, and I was saying comments about how I felt about the real estate market right now, and how I felt about some things. And without going too deep, she basically was like, yeah, so I know some very, very, very smart people who I really respect who say the same thing. And I was like, bingo. Because like I have full confidence in my views. Yeah. The problem is it's not about my views. It's about how to have other people learn for themselves to think from multiple perspectives. And like you have to be able to consider, let's use politics as an example.
Yeah.
Because the communication is shut down for politicians.
Yeah.
Like, it's just shut off. It's like they don't even have a conversation. They basically yell at each other and blame the other party and saying, hey, I recognize that we have some disagreements.
Yeah.
Why do we disagree?
Well, and that's not a politician's role, right? Like, maybe behind closed doors. It should be.
The politician's role is to represent the people.
But politicians are almost never like.
And
leaders,
this is, this bothers me a lot.
They're playing a role. They're not.
It's a mask.
you know, like they're not actively like trying to understand the other side. They're at war. They're just trying to win the freaking war.
Well,
You
that's
know
the problem. That's the problem. It shouldn't be a war because they should be going for the best thing for the country.
Well, that's why they don't accomplish anything together. You know what I mean? Like,
okay, okay. I actually do like politics in some regards.
Okay, sure.
We're in America.
Right.
America's gone through a lot of change in the last 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 200 years. We're still a baby country.
Yeah.
Right? We've been around way less than China and then India, even England, and like Europe. There's just been a lot less here.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution.
Me too.
There are things in there that at the time are not things that I agree with now.
Mm-hmm.
But the basic premise of everyone in America having the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is incredible.
It's incredible. Yeah, I love that.
It's beautiful. The challenge is I think more and more we are completely going away from that. We have a lot of regulations that don't actually accomplish anything.
Not saying the right to those of the life of happiness. It's the opportunity.
Well, there's no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. And like what you were saying about showing up every day and about putting your work in to serve others, that's where a lot of happiness comes. Like
that made me happy, and that makes me happy.
You want to help people. You want people to have a better life the next day.
It's one of my big self-checks is like when I like stop and I'm like, man, I'm just like stressed out. I'm not happy. Like one of my easy self-checks that sometimes I forget this, but I usually remember this one because I've been doing it for a couple of years or more than that probably, is okay, am I getting up and am I working like for myself and like what my girl wants and like, what's expected? Like, am I getting it mixed with like, things that you were basically subliminally trained in that's important in life. And it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Even though I worked on that stuff to break that stuff away so I could accomplish a lot more. The question is, am I being at service to the world?
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I'm not being at service to the world, I'm not freaking happy, man. And because I'm not waking up and I'm like, this isn't about more than me. Because you're waking up and you're like, oh, I'm on my computer. I'm like looking at different prospects and potential customers and like looking at and I'm thinking about me. And I'm not happy at all. So it's kind of funny because it's like you're trained to do that. Mm-hmm. But the happiest times I am is like when I'm just at service to people. And I'm just like, no, this is just not about me. This is about being at service to something bigger than me.
And people feel that energy. They know when you're legitimately telling them what you think is the best option in your experience or trying to help them understand what their problem is or what they find as key points or what things they're looking specifically to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm really challenged by this right now because I've only started speaking on podcasts recently because I've been scared to share what I want to share.
Yeah.
And I've been scared because it just says everything you've learned is some bullshit. And a lot of what you learn in the world, and I'm not saying what you learned, I'm saying I know. Our school, our education system, our colleges.
What you've institutionally learned.
Yes, it's indoctrination in a lot of ways.
And that's like from kindergarten on. And that's not just
12.
That carries on in a lot of corporations. It's still like very institutional.
Well, the whole reason why
you're trained to work
at brought in, right? You know why?
Is industrial. My understanding is
that's totally right.
Very industrial. Yep. It's like clocks and bells and whistles.
They want to make sure people wouldn't chop off their arms when they're in an assembly line.
And you show up literally like the attitude to like be successful is like, remember what we tell you to remember, show up on time, do this, listen to authority, don't question it, and and you'll be perfect for working in a goddamn factory, which was a very big thing when the education became this institutional system to prep you for a world that no longer exists.
No, it does not exist.
And you will not be successful like following, those credos that you learn from it,
You will be a very good drone. Or
You'll
a very
be a great
sheep.
drone.
Or a very good sheep. You're a great sheep.
And by the way, even worse now, as if that wasn't going to make you successful the last 2-3 decades, even worse now is my ass is going to sell robotics to take over your drone job. So fucking start growing.
But here's the thing.
You know what I mean? And it's not because I want to see people lose their job. It's because equal opportunity, bitch, and the robots need opportunity too.
But here's the beauty
You
of
know
that.
what I'm saying? Like
the beautiful
the
thing,
business wants an equal opportunity to use robotics that will enhance their business instead of using people for jobs that have a human being should not be doing.
Yeah,
there's no reason a human being. You're an infinite being. There's no reason you should be doing. There's no reason you should be working at a toll booth. And like what you do with your family every night is more complex. Like you make food for your kids. You say you have to do this job. I can't empathize with that because I am not there, but I kind of can.
This is where it gets really complicated because the reason why they're going to the job is to provide the resources so they can supply the food to their family.
Usually it's family, yeah.
So a lot of this then comes into energy.
So when do they have time to grow and learn new skills? While
theoretically, they could do it at work, but
you're in a toll booth. Put one headphone in.
Yeah, is it this hard to like
6 hours of podcasts and audiobooks a day? Like
most people don't do that. Most people.
I was the only one that did. I was the only technician that there was like one other technician. A few started doing it because I'd always talk about it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's smart. It just makes logical sense. Well,
you also got to be hungry to learn, dude.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
You got to be hungry to learn because if you're not like, oh wow, like you don't like get your mind blown every day. No, you just want to listen to that talk radio that supports your viewpoints, your belief points, makes you feel safe, makes
confirmation bias.
The rain's bouncing off of the umbrella, and you're in your little world, and it feels good and safe. You know, because you have food, you have water, you have shelter.
That's the biggest thing.
And you don't want to find out what's over the next mountain.
People don't want to miss out on the comforts they have.
Well, and I don't really blame them for it. You know, we've talked about both of us have a weakness if we let ourselves get too comfortable.
Yeah.
Look, we grew up in Minnesota. Yeah. Minnesota winters. If you let yourself get comfortable, you will not leave the house except for work. You'll watch Netflix. Like you'll learn some things, you know. But I mean, it's
you're limited in what you can do. But here's the thing: you're not even limited. You can actually
you're not.
You can go ice fishing.
Ice
fishing on aisles.
Right.
I was kind of amazed because it was like 50 degrees yesterday.
And
And like I went out with Akila. And we went and we were watching like the sunset.
Yeah.
We started walking the ice, and after about like 20 feet, she wouldn't have it.
Oh, really?
It was like 50 degrees.
It should be. Well, yeah, but it takes so long.
It should be thick enough, but at the same time, like,
you may want to be a little careful.
Oh, but I trust dogs. I trust the dog instinct more than mine on that one.
Good. Yeah. But the dog might just be looking out for itself. Like, it won't break on me, but.
Yeah, this guy over here. Actually, I'm like
the dog's like staying off to the side, waiting for it to break on you guys. Don't underestimate the self-centeredness of a dog, man.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
There's some dogs wolf pack for the self. Just kidding. At the same time, dogs are like so about the pack. You know what I mean? It's like otherwise they.
It's really funny because we have this relationship with dogs, especially in America, where like dogs are our friends, they're our buddies, they're our emotional support animals. They have a lot of value. Yet you go to a culture like India, they eat dogs.
I know, yeah.
And then you go
on the street, they're like a nuisance.
No, yeah, they're a nuisance, and you see that. Like I was just in Colombia like 2 months ago, and you see that all the time in a lot of different types of areas where most people like dogs more than humans.
Yeah.
And most people have more problems of they treat their dog better than they treat other humans.
Right.
And then they get mad at these humans for not treating them well. And it's like, well, treat people with respect. You're going to get respect back. Like,
humans are more complicated.
Not that complicated. Like, we project our own things, our own energy onto other people. So if you're mad at someone, maybe part of it's something they did, but more likely it's something that triggered something in you that has you have that emotion. And it's not that emotions are powerful. It's not bad to be mad. No. How do you channel it in a productive way?
Yeah, it's what you do with your emotions and your feelings. Yeah. Yeah. I was listening to a podcast recently, and this guy, he's like owner of like he's one of the owners of like these Orange Theory gyms.
Yeah.
And a really cool guy. He actually played in the NFL and the Dolphins and stuff. And I'm like, listening to, I think it was that guy. You know, I forget. It was on Mind Poem. But I might be wrong about maybe this is a different interview guy. But they said like one of the guys, I don't know. But one of the guys is talking about how like, you know, like these interactions every day with your family are so important, right? And you know how like you come home and okay, so basically he's like, you know who has the best so he was talking about his wife and he was like, yeah, so for her it's really important like how I say hi and stuff. And I will say like I feel it if my girl comes home and is like, or if I do that to her, she's like corner almost like I scolded her because I'm just focused on like what I'm doing. And I'm like, but it's like I'm pretty good at that because I'm very happy to see her. So 90% of the time I like say hi and like hug and stuff. And that's like really important because it's like you're also setting the stage for the whole night and like happy to see each other and appreciate each other.
But it doesn't take a lot either.
This guy said he's really bad at that. And I could tell by his personality, he probably is really bad at that because it's just not the way he expresses like love and stuff. He's a little more analytical and stuff. And he said, you know who the best is at that? My dog. Every time I see my dog, the happiest experience in that dog's day. Like just like I'm gonna smell you all over. Like I'm gonna say hi. I'm gonna like lick you. And it's just like crazy happy as can be. And they just do it right every time. There's a lot we can learn from dogs.
Yeah.
If you do that every time you I was blessed. I had a great group of friends in high school and like we were crazy. So like when we'd see each other, we hadn't seen each other for like a few days. We'd go like, "You're like Benny," and we'd just like what dogs do, go like, "Yeah," and like freak out and like tackle each other on the couches. It's just stupid. But like, dude, there was a more like loyal, like faithful group of friends like at that time. You know, like we were just like, you know, and it's dude, it's important. You know what I mean? And most people don't have those greetings unless they're severely intoxicated. And I think that's
social lubricant.
Yeah. Be more like a dog.
Well, I think that's also the idea of like the wolf pack is the wolves don't actually come in packs most of the time. They're actually individual a lot of the time until they have to come together. And they have to come together usually when there's something bigger than that they could handle by themselves. Like, and I think it takes you being your own wolf to recognize the wolf in your group of friends. And my guess is with your buddies is you guys were all that way.
Yeah.
Because you guys all thrived and loved the energy you guys brought to the table.
Right.
And like it's like when you're at the bar. Whatever group is having the most fun is who people want to talk to.
Right.
That's just how it is because people like are attracted to higher vibrational energy.
Yep.
And like it's fun stuff. And like
it really is fun, yeah. Yeah. I know you don't go out and drink very much anymore, right?
Well, dude, alcohol. So the word alcohol derives basically from Arabic for alcohol. It's like Kuhl, and it basically is for evil spirits.
Oh, really?
That's why they call hard liquor spirits.
Dude, I think Arabic people weren't drinking, right?
Well, it's the same thing with anything you get externally.
Yeah.
The body naturally produces pretty much every chemical anyway. And, you probably know more about this than me of all your nootropic research. But with that is when you're adding excess of whatever chemical that goes in you, it's going to have a more profound effect. That's why if you have no tolerance and you have 3 shots versus someone who drinks all the time, there's a reason why they're able to drink so much more than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some parts genetic, parts – honestly, I went out last night to Black Dog in St. Paul. And
I don't know if I've been there or not.
I think it was my first or second time, but it's their 242nd straight Saturday night of live jazz music.
Oh my gosh! Why haven't I been there?
Yeah, I felt that way too. And
I live in California, by the way. So I don't. Yeah.
Hey, anyone in Minneapolis who wants to go to live jazz Saturday nights? One of my
show up.
Kundalini teacher trainers was performing, so that's why I went. He played upright bass, and it was wonderful.
You want to talk about existing in your being in a higher frequency? Let's talk about a Kundalini yoga teacher who also plays jazz music.
He is an orchestra teacher.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
He's also like a teacher in his
job. Some of the guys there, they've been playing for 40 years. Like it was older.
Gosh,
group, and like this guy on the piano. Let's see, what's his name? It was.
Did you experience this? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, no, continue. I'm just thinking of all the names I'm running through. Nathan was the drummer.
Okay.
Dave was the guitarist. Because I'm one of those people, I've always my whole life said I'm bad with names.
Yeah.
So one of my things I'm
Yeah.
working on, all of my affirmations, is saying I'm really good with names. I'm really good at
Mhm.
remembering names.
Mhm.
So last night, my
Yeah,
goal
like
was I'm
telling
going to
yourself
know
that.
everyone's name in the
Yeah.
band.
Yeah.
And Paul played saxophone. Tom is my friend. He plays cello. I
Okay.
had a guy named Drew there who played the set before.
Okay.
Steve was the MC. I want to say Chris. I might get that.
Okay.
Anyway, he
Is this
plays
every Friday night in St. Paul?
every Saturday night.
Every Saturday
And
night. Okay.
they just brought so much soul to their
Yeah.
music.
I want to go next
Dude,
time. Next time I'm in town.
I had never been before to the live
Have you been to
jazz
other
here.
to any lab jazz?
I've been to Dakota.
Okay.
In downtown Minneapolis. It's right
Okay.
by
I've actually never did a lot of jazz in Minneapolis, but it's like when I've traveled, I always find myself in little jazz places. Like I remember at Fort Collins, the drinks were like crazy expensive. They were like incredible drinks, but the jazz tone was just perfect. Like whether you're close to the jazz, away from the jazz, it was like you could have a conversation with people, and it was just so awesome. Like jazz places they just do it right. Like it's different than any live music you'll ever like
It's cool.
experience.
It's
You
cool you
know?
say that because I went with my buddy
It's
Elliot, and
yeah.
he and I had completely opposite types of experiences. I
Oh
ended
really?
up, yeah. So like when we got in there, it was like packed. The whole place, like it's reserved. There's no
Yeah.
space. And I'm one of those people who's like, hey, like where can I sit? Where's the best place? And they basically set me
Yeah.
into the back room where the band all is.
Oh,
So I hung out
okay.
with all the band people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It worked out great because you know all the band members now.
I knew one guy, but I befriended and I got to talk to more of them. But
Yeah.
I had this like literally, it's like a nice like sofa, and like, the band's right there, and like I can't really see most of the crowd, so it's just like me and the music.
Yeah.
And it was pretty great. And my buddy, he was hungry, so he went to the bar. So he went to the bar to eat, and like he was having conversation with someone the whole time, and like I ended up talking to the person next to me who was playing the band before, but he and I had totally different experiences at the same concert. I was very like immersed in the music and like got a seat right in front, and like
But
I
you
was
could
basically
still have a conversation with the person next to you.
Yeah, I did. I learned a lot. His name was Drew, and he wanted to learn upright bass, and he's actually
cool.
He's come to Kundalini class.
Yeah.
So got a little sales. We're working that.
Yeah.
But it was just you can have the conversations, but you also can have the enjoyment of being present.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I took the music route where I was basically eyes closed, just like tapping my hands, just feeling the vibes.
Yeah.
And it was great for me because that's something that I'm always one of those people who's like, I like people, I like talking, I like being involved with people. And it's harder for me sometimes to just like go into my zone because I care what everyone thinks. Like not as much at all now, but like when I was younger and growing up, I cared a lot what people thought.
Yeah.
And more as I have gone through my own practice, and especially with what I'm sharing in the financial world and being like a devil's advocate to a lot of traditional practices, is the love and courage of my own vulnerability and not really caring that anyone else thinks this or this and this about me, because it's not about me. It's their reflection of themselves projected.
It should be taught in schools, man.
Yeah. Why don't we teach in schools?
Well, it doesn't fit the status quo to teach people to like be enlightened for themselves. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, dang.
Because how do you get them to work at a company and follow bad leaders?
They won't.
They'll always follow great leaders.
Yeah,
that's the thing. But then they're follow. You know, they're not. It's not fitting the status quo of like what's expected of you in the real world.
Right? Why do they call it television programming? It's called programming for a reason, my friend.
It really is. No, it really is. And I actually think one of the most, like, if somebody doesn't feel like they have control of their life, I think one of the most valuable things you can do, which is it's a long, arduous process that is painful. So it's not like it's an enjoyable thing. So like you really, to kind of decide this yourself, like you have somebody like Henry or me tell you, this will get you to this point. So you'll feel so much better about yada, 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 yada. And people might do it because of that, not necessarily because we say it, because somebody that they have respect for says it. Don't listen to us.
Trust yourself.
Right.
Trust yourself and dig.
But that was the point, is that really though, there's people that will always find that on their own. Mm-hmm. And it might be when they're 40, it might be when they're 20, it might be in their teenage years, who knows? or as a child, some people. But
think about the opportunities available for kids these days.
To start deprogramming yourself, like you don't understand the biases that you have and the way you think about things. Like if you catch yourself like, oh, I just don't like that. Oh, I just don't sing. Like you are programming yourself too all the time, and you're telling yourself what you're capable of and what you're not capable of, which is even worse. And you're basically telling, like a saying that I have it's not totally original. I guarantee you people were saying stuff like this thousands of years ago. Is everybody's telling themselves a story, and your conscious goal is to fit that narrative that you've been telling yourself your whole life, and that the system or the institutional system's been telling you, big marketing companies, because those are like two big things. Institutional systems like school, which is not all bad, but
there's incredible, amazing teachers within it who are sharing this information,
and but they have a programming like initiative. Like they want something out of you. They don't just want you to learn and be an incredible human being. No. They want something out of you. Yeah. Like you are in school for them to get output out of you as a worker in the real world.
Let's be honest here, Sean.
To the feds or whatever, right? Like it's they want you to work for the system.
If you do not control your own mind, someone else controls it.
Period. Yeah. Period.
The biggest thing, the hardest thing is getting past your own thoughts and your own biases and your own programming, like we've discussed. And there's a lot of deep subconscious stuff. That's
the painful, because it's also where I think it's the most painful for almost everybody is actually the programming that your parents have on you. Totally. And 99% of the time, I would say it's not because your parents believe this or believe that. It's because they're just passing on the programming that they have.
Their parents.
And that's just what human beings do. And realizing that is really tough. And that's why I like to say everybody's telling themselves a story, because it's just a little hint and a little riddle towards like what I believe is a greater truth, that until you wake up from the story and realize that you're in a story, you will abide by the rules and the laws and the physics of that story. And you will wonder why you can't do things other people can do that have basically woken up from that story and,
created their own story.
Yeah, bingo, bro. Yeah.
Pretty much all music.
That's what it is.
Musicians have done this. This is why we love music.
Yeah.
Music tells a story. It's the same with art. It paints a tapestry of those experiences into who you are as a character.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that like art is probably one of the easiest like releases to just kind of get out. And I've known a lot of people like, and they're like really brilliant, smart people that like, they may have like followed the system and been successful at it, but they always have this super interest in like art, even though they don't do any art. They just love looking at paintings and stuff. Actually, my dad, like, he's always said he's not artistic. He doesn't sing, like, that kind of self-programming a little bit. But he's always interested in art. It's kind of and he's just like says he's not artistic at all, which is interesting because it's like, but he definitely like changed his programming to some degree to do some of the things that he's done. And everybody does it to various degrees, right? But I will say, to completely uproot like the programming,
it's a lot.
It's very painful. It's also it can be very painful.
Yeah.
Like me and Henry will be uprooting our programming our entire lives.
Yes.
It's not like it happens one day. It's like no.
It's a process.
It's kind of like reality. Like you're either paying somebody else's mortgage or you're paying your own.
Interestingly enough, the word mortgage comes from Latin for morgue, which is death. So the idea of a mortgage is you pay until you die. Just for people who don't understand what that actually implies, it's very dark, deep stuff. And we have not even scratched the surface of real conspiracy things that I may or may not believe are, but it comes down to a lot of.
Well, Henry's really good because Henry will like think about these financial systems and like the roots and history of things. One thing that me and Henry are both passionate about is history, which our generation is not passionate about history, no matter what they tell you. They're not.
They look at one source.
Well, I'll do it if you look at the history that they learned too. It's like
Wikipedia. I read this on Wikipedia.
Dude, like your classes, your high school classes version of like the Civil War and Revolutionary War is so inaccurate. Like, and like, yeah, I mean, there might be some great teachers out there. Like, actually, my girl grew up in a small town, and she had these incredible teachers that I did not experience
Did you grow up in Minnesota?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, smaller town in Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and she had like these like almost revolutionary teachers, dude. Like that, I'm like, wow, like no wonder you didn't have rebellious attitude problems. You know, I'm like, is that your teachers were rebels? You know,
I got
it's
really
pretty cool. Actually,
I got really lucky. I had a lot of great teachers going back,
Yeah.
and I can name a lot of them: Miss Johnson, Miss Allman. Yeah, there's a lot of names. But I remember in 10th grade, I took an AP history class. I went to Hopkins High School,
Yeah.
and in my AP history class, we had two main textbooks we were reading.
Mhm.
We were reading Alan Brinkley's like thick old textbook on all like the traditional history college textbook, thick pictures, tons and tons of information. And then we also read Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States, which is more of like an alternative viewpoint on history. So it talks a lot about Christopher Columbus coming and a lot of the smallpox problems with the Native Americans and a lot of this negative things that we never talked about because the winners write history. So they get rid of all the bad stuff. Kind of thing. And then just having that class create and help me understand that what you're told isn't necessarily the truth. It's just someone's version of the truth.
Right. It's just perception. Yeah.
Having, and even our discussions is we're both coming at this from our own perspective of truth. Like what my truth is might not align 100% with your truth, but we're able to communicate about it because we understand and recognize that that's what makes us individuals. That's what empowers us. That's what gives us that ability to lead and to make a change is by putting the time on ourselves first. And like, we've been talking about podcasts for how many years now?
Yeah. Well, since I think I moved like 3 years ago. Yeah. Well, I think part of it is like, I honestly, for me anyways, and I believe this for you too, is like, I want to provide something valuable. So like, I can honestly say that a few years before, so I had lived in Florida at like in 2014. So I had like left my home roots and like gone out into the world and done, tried to do different things. I came back. I actually had a series of events. A best friend of mine died, and then my dog died, and I ended up staying longer than I wanted to. But I was, so me and Henry got to know each other during that time, kind of after that. And I was working with this company, and I was really growing. And it was a bad relationship that spurred me to like be like, it really pushed me in the direction of like, I'm going to learn every day. Like I'm going to grow. I had a saying for a while, like I'm going to make the most of the days. And because the person that I was with actually was like polar opposite in this. It's like clearly why we like we ended up, because she like blame everything, external factors, like everything on like what the fuck like was going on around her. Like, oh, I can't do this. Oh, I can't do this. And then she was so unhappy every day she'd get done with work. And I thought that maybe it's just like, oh, you must have a bad job. Being very naive. It's like, actually, no, that can weigh on you. But like I saw Henry be in a corporation that it weighed on him because of a lot of that. But Henry still made the most of the days. But I saw it in your eyes at different times where I knew you were worn down from that. And it wasn't the time. It wasn't the work. It was probably the mindset and the energy
and mindset.
And
here's the thing that frustrated me there, Sean. And I remember I showed up to work every day, right? I'm working in this, I'm at the U.S. Bank headquarters, fancy building, like nice elevators. Like
downtown Minneapolis.
Everyone's in suits and nice dress clothes.
As corporate as it gets,
As corporate people are wearing Gucci and all this Armani like status.
Yeah.
And they're not happy. They complain. they're like, how do these homeless people sit there and ask for money from me? Like, why am I here being different? And they thought they were better than other people. And the reason I got into banking,
part of the story, you know what I mean? Because otherwise, if you don't think you're better than other people, this is for a lot of people. I've noticed, like I think that me and Henry are kindred spirits. Were like, my heart goes out to the person who's more like at different times in their life, maybe they were depressed and they just felt like they were a shitty person. And to me, my heart goes out to that person because like they're ready for growth. They're ready to become great in some ways. But then there's the other side, which is like you start having those feelings of like depression and realizing that like you don't know shit and realizing that you don't understand shit and realizing that like you're kind of a piece of shit and that's what the system taught you to be, whatever you want to blame it on. Cycles. But then these people do is they go and they just double the fuck down on delusion. They do. And they just like, you see it. Like me and Henry are like very people person. So I've always been like, I go to a bar and like point at people and like make crazy claims about their life and like what kind of and I'm right a lot. Like I'm right like almost all the fucking time. Like because I'm not going to tell you the truth that I don't see. Like I have other guesses that are more far out about people, and this all happens in very quick glances. So like, and that because that's just like that's like the only skill that I have. Like really, that's it. That's it.
That's like the best skill to have, though. It's a great skill to have.
I love it. It's just fun, right? It's obviously because I have a massive interest in like people and shit. But I look at people, and it depends what bar you go to, because people follow. Like they follow whoever seems like they have the most influence. So when me and Henry are at a bar and we're having a good group of time, people come in who normally try to look down their nose at people, and instead you see like this, like this held down, ears up, like puppy eyes, like, oh, you guys. But you saw them at a different bar before, and they were trying to look down at everybody because they felt intimidated by people. Because they're comparing themselves to people. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is people double down on this delusion, and then they just live the rest of their lives with it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, dude, it's just like my heart should go out to them more, but I'm like, fuck you. Like you're like you're the people that have doubled down on your delusion to cause problems for everybody else. That's like trying to like grow and be enlightened to some degree. And I use the word enlightened not just like for spirituality and religion, but be a free thinker. Mm-hmm. Like think for yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, conduct your own thoughts. Be the captain of your own ship. And, you know, so I can point to people at bars everywhere you go, especially corporate downtown areas, anywhere in the country, and I see them, you know, you see their eyes, and it's like, dude, I from a young age, I was always looking at people like, do people not know that their face is just like this fucking open book?
Oh,
you gotta get a warrior face if you're gonna hide shit from me about your elitism, you know.
So, first of all, how have you never played poker?
Oh, I'm
just saying, like,
it scared me.
This is something.
I'm just kidding. I lost plenty.
I'll teach you the math.
No, I understood the concepts of the math, but I never really practiced it.
Poker is one of the best. People. So casinos are very dingy energy a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's probably not.
No, it's a good thing though, because there's a lot of negative energy. There's a lot of people who are losing money. There's a lot of bad vibrations there. And when you go play poker, you can completely sway the game based on the vibrations you bring to the game. And this is kind of why
maybe this is what I should be doing, is just playing poker like on the
I don't, because gambling is not a good thing. I really don't think it is, because it's zero sum. If I win, they're losing.
Right.
And you notice when people play poker, people complain. They'd say, oh, I'm unlucky, or I'm not doing well, or things aren't working out for me. And then it's a psychological game where I know this guy thinks he's going to lose. So I'm just going to play any two cards and just bet. And he's going to be like, well, you hit it again. I'm like, yep, I hit it again, man. Like, you just – it doesn't even matter what cards I have.
They are choosing to stand on the plank of the ship. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's true.
To me, it's like you chose it.
Go to the wheel.
I got no problem taking the sword and pushing you over the edge. I'm not going to stab you, but you are going in the water. You know, and it's like if they chose that, they chose it. So it is. I agree that's zero-sum game. I would play the conniving devil's advocate that I sometimes play and be like, but I could purchase them a drink and tell them some words that are very unwanted about wisdom, and maybe one day they'll wake up in the middle of the night, you're playing my greatest hope, and be like, oh, he was right. I've been living a lie.
Oh, dude.
You know what I mean? Like, John, you can plant the seeds of destruction in their idea of their programming and their story. I love planting the seeds of destruction in people's stories to themselves. I love it.
I think something we.
I think somebody did it to me. Yeah. So planting.
And it's not about being mean. It's not about negativity at all.
Dude, maybe that's what we should name the podcast: The Seeds of Destruction.
I really like that. That's really good.
Yeah. You know, so I want to share something that Henry shared with me the other day, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Like, it's not like for me, like it's not like I'm thinking about it consciously, like writing about it, but it's like subconsciously, like it won't go away. And it was something because I've always been like, okay, like one step of leading is to follow, and I was blessed to have. I didn't like leadership for years, so I loved leadership, but I didn't know what it was when I was a kid. because it's like night games, follow me.
Yep.
But it wasn't about me. It was about the team succeeding in night games, right? And team succeeding in basketball. But then when you get older, all their parents are like, you're going to be the leader one day. Yeah. And they say that to their kids. And their kids become these creepy little like conniving people that want to lead, but they really suck at it. And it's awkward. And I'm like, whatever that is, I don't want any part of it. Like, I don't want to be the fucking leader. Fuck that. Like, that's just disturbing to say the least. And just let them do it. And then I'll try to make the team successful without being the, you know, the captain or whatever. But and I carried that bad attitude, which was a misconception of like what leadership was, into my adult years. And now there was an industry that I got into very early that I did lead in. But it was an industry where it's a rebellious industry that I won't talk about yet. But so it's a little different. So it's like, I felt comfortable in that industry. But then when I like, yeah, my mentor in green carpet cleaning industry was really the one that like showed me, like, was like, dude, you're being an idiot. Like, that's not what it is. And the first one step of leading is you got to be able to follow. Right. So I had shared that thought, like, yeah, like we were BSing about something, Henry. And I had shared that thought, well, one step, you got to be able to follow, to lead. And then Henry countered with something that was really fucking powerful to me. And he was like, but you got to question everything, or like, you have to question to be a student. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you have to be a rebel to be a true student, but you have to follow to lead. So I think it's interesting because like, it's not like it's, oh, you'll be a rebel for some time and then a true student of like life, reality, existence, and questioning all things to be a great student. You're a rebel. Like, to be a great student, you have to be a rebel. And I thought that was so cool because we had different paths. Henry was really good, really succeeded in school. I questioned so much that I didn't have any respect for teachers that couldn't answer the question why 3 times. You know, like, they didn't know what time was. Nobody's been able to tell me that yet. They didn't know what time was, so why should I listen to him? And this is like little 7th grade me, right? So it was cool that he said this because I was like, oh shit, yeah. So that rebel in you, like, it never goes away. But then there's time. So I got into new industry in the last like year and a half, and I kind of went back to being a student and being very rebellious about knowledge and questioning, like, really, is that how it works, or is there a better way to do it? And you know, for my own growth. And but then you get back into following and leading, you know, and I thought that was interesting, but just like, you have to be a rebel and question everything to be a student. And I just wanted to share that was what Henry threw my way. And it kind of like, at first it hit, and I was like, oh, but afterwards it's like, it was a seed that Henry almost planted that he did plant, that it's kind of grown. And I think it's going to keep sprouting because it's very interesting. So I wanted to share that.
Well, I appreciate that, Sean, because that's an issue that hits me at my heart really deeply. Because a lot of like, I've gone through, so I teach Kundalini yoga now, and I taught a class on Saturday morning.
Oh, you did?
My second class I've taught the Hindu temple, and it was just really powerful. Yeah. And it's kind of been challenging for me because I'm one of those people who I like to read the rules. Like when I was a kid, if I was going to play a game, I was like, okay, if I'm going to play a game, I want to know how the rules work. Because if I know how the rules work, I know how to best play the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And a lot of, like, I read a lot of Yogi Bhajan was the man who brought Kundalini yoga from the East, from India to the West. And it's a Raj yoga. So traditionally, it was only taught to the very upper, essentially 1%, the people who were able to have that access to that information. Because if everyone had this information, then there wouldn't be the 1% anymore. And that's the fallacy. That people get.
Isn't that interesting? In different civilization, it was meditative practices that were, hidden from the masses.
And
that's interesting to me. It's like,
because that's crazy about that.
That's crazy.
The thing that's crazy about though is I read the texts from this man Yogi Bhajan, and he's a wonderful human. He's sat with the Dalai Lama. He's had so much exposure. I highly, highly, highly recommend people just look on his talks, look it up, because he's very wise. He has like a PhD in communication. Yeah. He's able to reach people, but he also says so much hypocrisy. And I'm one of those people who reads it, and it's like, it is impossible to do everything he says that you have to do to be this teacher. And there's a lot of rules, and like, I actually have it. Let's see if I got my code of ethics sheet right here. So you can't really see it, but I have a code of ethics for Kundalini. And I had a really hard time signing it. And I've been an all or nothing person a lot of my a lot of my life. Where I'm like, I'm either all this way or all this way. It's not really an in between, and that's my own dealing with my own calibration of these different extremes.
Yeah.
Masculinity, femininity, and finding your in between.
Yeah.
But I get challenged because I read these texts of these holy figures and all these people, and they have a lot of their own battle scars. They have a lot of negative things they've gone through in their life. They don't necessarily always follow every single thing they preach. And this is where I get kind of bothered by the hypocrisy, and the realization is it's not actually about if what they're saying is right or wrong. It's about them trusting their own process. And like when I teach yoga, I'm there, and like I'm a younger guy. I'm in pretty good shape, and like for a man, I'm pretty flexible. Compared to women, I'm not that flexible at all, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong. We're all different. But I tell people in class, and this is part of my teaching, is I'm here to be a conduit for you to have your own experience. But these are the teachings that have been passed down for thousands of years that have enabled people to free themselves to be who they are.
Yeah.
Like we're all different people. We all have souls, and our souls are an uncovering. Like there's a great story about an invasion of Genghis Khan. He invades this really small village, and there's this Buddha that's in the front of the palace, and it's covered in mud. And they go by it, and they just see a mud Buddha, and they're like, "Oh, it's just mud. No cares."
Yeah. Yeah.
And they found like hundreds of years later that it's actually mud, but it's all gold underneath. But by covering it in mud, it showed that it wasn't actually valuable.
Yeah.
So sometimes the darkest parts of your life can actually be the brightest when you can understand that there is no duality, that we are just one existence. And like, if I'm able to love myself, the good, the bad, the ugly, I'm able to love you, the good, the bad, the ugly, and I'm not going to necessarily react if there's things that like push me in a certain direction. Or I want to be, like you said at the bar, you're an action taker. You're not reacting. And that's something I like about you, Sean, is you are an action person. And when you want something, you go after it, because it's not about what other people did. It's about what you want in your life to bring for you, which also can be for your team. Which is when you have that leadership role, which you're a natural leader, man, because you're able to bring that individual levels who might be thinking about, oh, I want to be the highest scoring guy, or I want to get the most rebounds, who are thinking about that individual level.
That's my favorite. Because it's easy to bring them in. And then like a lot of times, I've noticed a lot of times that player that's like, I want to be the best. I want to be the best individually, right? Sometimes they make the best, they can turn into great leaders later, because I don't know what it is, but it's like, because they bring that same, like, I want our team to be the best. And then they connect that for their team to be the best, they have to be at service to their team and constantly be doing things for the team. And they create like this circular energy with the team. And it's almost easier for them to understand that than like, I don't know. But yeah, most people like it, they get into that. I want to take a minute and appreciate everything that you just said, because it's sweet. But yeah, most people get into that because they're like they most people that you see want to be leaders, it's for themselves. So like I will say, like, I'm a shitty leader when I'm in it, when I do it for myself. I can hit great sales numbers if you're in a sales career. If we were at war, I don't want to think of myself as like a horribly violent person, but I'm sure I'd figure it out, and I'd be very brutal. And
I don't want you on my team. I'll tell you that. I want you in my wolf pack, bro.
Oh, I'd be a pussy. I'm like, I want to stay alive, bitch. But then later, I might just be like, I get it, and then I just, you know what I mean? And then, when I made it about the team, it's like then great things start coming out of a person.
Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James. Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James. Like, hey, same draft class. Some different results. Just saying. Carmelo, I'm not hating on you, brother, but I'm just saying, like,
it's a big difference.
LeBron has brought – the team that he brought to the finals last year was not very good.
Yeah.
In professional standards. Obviously, if we were –
I don't follow a lot of –
I don't much either, but I have over my last 10 years of my life.
Yeah, for sure. Bro, I think that's considered a lot. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said about, like, if you make other people great around you, that's like sacred to me. Like, to me, in my appreciation system of human beings, Like to me, that's sacred and awe-inspiring. Where like one person becoming great, you know what I mean, for themselves or whatever is like I almost don't consider it great. It's like, but when they make people great around them, that's a
Dude, this is what,
especially when they're not like worried about like their success, right? Like, and people are blown away. So I had a guy from New York that I got in touch with from LinkedIn because I made some snidey comment about 3M, and I think 3M's doing a good job. So I didn't, but I kind of wanted to receive my comment, but I wanted to leave it to embed a seed of destruction in their self-gaining process, right? Because like I work in renewable energy now. I sell solar to businesses, and I build projects, and I'm going to be starting a residential solar company and building a team for that the next year. And what I see is all these companies that like, okay, they have all this gain to do renewable energy, but they're really focused on the PR, which is cool. Like I get it, but you know, they're going to get a great financial return too. So like when I see them actually doing something substantial to like zero out their carbon emissions for the year, I'm very for that. But what's cheaper than doing something substantial to zero out your carbon emissions? Make the mass public think that you're doing something substantial. And so that's the model, the PR model that I've seen everywhere. Nice. So 3M came out, and now they've changed it actually. And it probably wasn't just for me, but it wasn't. But everybody saw the same fallacy in it. Because I think the best thing you can do as a company to see if your PR is going to hit, see what the renewable energy industry and the green industry think about your bullshit. And there's a lot of people that work in it and they're like, oh, that's great. But it's like, no, see what leaders in it think. And they know you're full of shit, you know? So what they had said is that for every product they create, they're going to have a sustainability aspect to it. So like whether it's giving back to something or creating the product like with different plastic that's more renewable and sustainable, or, you know, they didn't mention powering it with renewable energy or, you know, earth harnessed energy, Terra harnessed energy, wind, solar, hydro. But the kicker that made me say a snidey, grueling comment that this guy, it was like, you just lit them up, dude. But I said it really politely, was like, they said, or to help solve social, was it like issues or injustices or something? It's basically a cop-out. Because it's like everything sneeze that happens is a social injustice in the climate right now. So it's like, there's not a set, what is a social problem, right? There's not, like, our culture and the people of our culture don't know what that definition is. And if somebody's out there like I do, it's like, great, but a million other people have a million different definitions than you. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean by they don't know what the definition is. It's because I know there's professionals out there that are like, oh yeah, I know what that is. Well,
very few people.
Doesn't. Yeah. And your other colleagues, I guarantee you think it's something different. Like a lot of them. So like to me, it was a cop out because it's like, okay, zeroing out carbon emissions to 80% or something is something you can track and they're holding themselves accountable to. But what this PR stunt is like basically they're accountable to nobody except for the perceptions of the fickle mass. So I grilled him for it. And then I got in touch with this guy who was out in New York, like grew up in a very zero-sum gainy environment. Like he's a commercial real estate guy. And he's like worked in these different companies where like he had opportunities to like build them from 0 to 200 people for like these, when there's a buyout. I started learning about some business that I've never really heard about. And it's like, it's got to be very East Coasty because California is like, you can do a deal in your fucking sandals and, you know, it's very different. It's not that bad, but it can be, it's very different. And so he called me this one time. He's like, hey, it's a little urgent, but it's not that big. I'm like, why is this guy so urgent? Okay. And because we had talked afterwards, and he was like, you know, the reason I called you, he's like, I totally agree. And I love your snidey comment or whatever. Well, we talked about, he got an opportunity to work for a renewable energy company that just got bought out by not exactly an oil company, but it's basically a utility that has like a lot of ties to the big energy industry. By the way, energy is fossil fuels, renewables, energy industry is everything. And it's potentially, you know, like the biggest industry on the planet. It has a lot of power. But with this buyout, they want to expand aggressively. He's like, Sean, I don't know anything about renewable energy or solar. Like I've worked on efficiencies and stuff. And my advice was something like, I basically got on the phone with a half hour to him. I won't get into like the details, but he was very thankful for it. And he almost was trying to make this connection back around to me. Like maybe like you're somebody that I'd want on my side if I get this job. Cause it's like a regional director of sales. And like, this is the kind of job where like you can make millions of dollars a year in his position, and people that are really killing it under him, directly under him, might do really well too. And you're having a big impact. So I'm like, well, will I have a bigger impact working for myself or work for a company like this? Believe I'm humble enough to like go back and work for a company. If I'm going to have a greater impact doing that, be more at service. So anyways, what struck me, and I kind of expected it, I guess, is that he was trying to figure out like what he could do for me for helping him out, for just spending time talking for a half hour. I was like, and I kind of tried to brush it off at first, like, because I didn't want to go into the depths of like why I'm very into that. But I was like, oh, I love talking shop. Like I like talk about work all the time. My girl doesn't want to hear about it 24 hours a day, like while she's sleeping. So, I try to like brush it off, right? Being a sarcastic bastard that I am, and
seeds of destruction, Sean.
But then he really was trying to like do something for me. He's like, well, and so I went, his name's Rand. I was like, Rand, actually the reason I'm totally for it is because I believe that we need more people like you in renewable energy. I think we've had a lot of millennials jump in, and that's not the worst thing, but it's a great thing. But I believe we need people that have seen the ups and downs of the economies, have worked in B2B, business to business, commercial scale. It's not adopting very well, even in California, where it's like this project, you basically, you spend $1 million and you get $680,000 in cash the first year. You use the bank's money, and if you put that $680,000 away and use your savings from the project to pay off the project, you'll break even over the course of 5 to 7 years. You never spend any of your own CapEx, and you just basically I can give a company $680,000 in cash after tax dollars to spend $1 million on solar. And after 5 to 7 years, they'll start saving $150,000 to or $200,000 to their NOI a year. It's crazy. It's like, if you plan on being in business for not going out of business in the next couple of years, you're insane not to do it. But companies that survived all these times are like fearful, and they have a hard time believing people, right? Because it's like, well, like that's crazy. They don't get that good of a return on almost anything. So this guy, I just told him it's really important that we have people like you in the industry. And we were joking and stuff. And he's like, in reality, it was, you got to bring gray. It was always bring gray to the table. Otherwise, and I thought, like, I shared with him that basically anything I can do to help our industry is good. And I believe all ships rise with the tide. And we're just at like 2% or 6% adoption, not even yet across the world. We're only going to go from there to 100 in the next century. It's like, even if the economy goes bad, there's still going to be growth around the world in renewables, I believe, because we have to. It's not, it's come to that point, kind of. And because it makes more financial sense for cities and companies and homeowners. So anyways, I went on too long about this,
it's important.
The point is that this guy couldn't understand for a second why I wanted to help him so much. Because he's probably experienced people being like, oh, I want that job. Oh, like, what do I get out of this? Like, if I talk to you. And I was like, yeah, but I have a little bit of that because of my programming, and I'm competitive, but like most of my motivation is like, how can I be at service to the world in my lifetime and have a net positive impact, and see this, play my small role in pushing the world in the direction that I want to see it be in, which is, more utopia, like more happiness, people being able to discover themselves more, abundant, clean energy, abundant, clean water, to power our civilizations and technology, and you can make a lot of money doing it. So I will say I'm definitely not the like, oh, I don't want to make anything. No, I want to make great money and be able to travel the world to further my learning and freedom and advancement as a human being. That sometimes that does take money to go travel and see places. But this guy was blown away by it, and I thought it was cool because I was like, I do think this is a mentality that people just don't run into very often, but it's growing in people now. And
I like everything you said. I think the fact that you start off,
I could have summarized it in 20% of that.
It doesn't matter. It's Seeds of Destruction, man. You have some good stuff in there.
Long form podcast.
First of all, we can turn this into product for podcasts. Like we've already
each hour-long podcast will be one rant.
We could both do that.
I know.
A variety of subjects. And this is the scary thing. But the thing that resonated the most with that is you did something backwards to what other people did. You gave first. reap and you shall sow. You planted seeds first of being helpful, of being there, trying to help, coming from his perspective. How can you empower him? And there's also one other thing that in that conversation, use the word money 3 or 4 times. And that's an area that I hear that word and it triggers me. It triggers me because we live in a world where actually we're not even using money, we're using currency. And we've never, as a population, for pretty much everyone around the world, and America's almost worse about it, is they don't have an education on what is money and what is currency and the difference. There's no education, because if they taught you this, you would have a completely different relationship. So when I think of money,
taxes and debt your entire life,
you don't learn about this stuff.
So you won't be contributing to society in the way they want you to.
Well, that's the thing, is money, for all intents and purposes, is energy, right? Like the reason you go work hard is you're putting your blood, your sweat, your tears, your mind, your time, like your energy into creating value for other people. And you're rewarded a lot of the time with money, which is essentially energy. And the thing about that is people are getting stripped of a lot of their energy without realizing it, through things like inflation, through tax, or a lot of taxes, in my opinion, through a lot of things that are not necessarily things they recognize as taking away their energy. So like, for instance, let's say you make $100,000 a year and you're going to pay a certain marginal tax rate. So that marginal tax rate may be like 28%, I believe, around there.
Right.
So all of a sudden your 100 grand is now 72 grand. Okay. Now you have 72 grand that's post-tax. So like, oh, it's mine. I don't have to owe anything else, but you own a house. So you're paying off a mortgage, which means you're paying, for most people, you're paying probably 20% into equity, 80% to pay off the debt on the money that you owe. Now, not only are you paying off your mortgage, but you're also paying property taxes. So you're taking money you've already paid taxes on. And there are ways to remove the taxes, which is a big thing for solar, is the tax credit. Which is what enables people to make so much money off of it, which is government incentivized. And it's challenging to me because
you don't pay as much. You 30% of your project value, you don't pay in taxes. So if you got a $10,000 tax credit from a third, or whatever, if you got a $10,000 tax credit, sorry, let's do this. If you got a $3,000 tax credit from a $10,000 small solar system on your home, you now don't owe $3,000 to the federal government that year. Or if you paid it already, well, you wouldn't have paid it already unless the year was over. But
but there's a lot of these like little games and these little rules and these little systems that people don't understand until they're in that specific niche.
Right.
And like I went to school. I was pre-med when I was in college, because I like serving people. So like the idea of being a doctor was about helping people. But the more I went through biology and I took organic chemistry and chemistry, the more I kind of realized that there's a lot of ego there.
Is there?
There's a lot of ego in that area. And I say this not to say most doctors and nurses, people are doing it for their hearts, but there's also a big paycheck involved for a lot of people. But I think a lot of what is taught is actually backwards. We don't learn anything about nutrition. We don't know anything about meditation. We don't learn anything about mindfulness a lot of the time. And those
like
things,
lifestyle that prevents so many of the problems later.
Oh, completely. Like I haven't been to the doctor in I think 2 or 3 years. And like I did my resting heart rate's probably like 43 or 44. And like,
that's really good.
Yes and no. Some people could say it's dangerous, but I think it's not necessarily about that. I think it's how you feel. And like, I've been eating almost vegetarian. Like I got to like 195 pounds. I was going to show you this earlier, Sean.
Oh, did you? Yeah. We're like the same.
Because when we were talking about Mind Pump, like when I was working out, can't really see it in these pictures.
Yeah.
Every single day I went to my picture.
I can see maps.
Anyway, I put all the workouts I'm doing. So every single day.
Yeah.
There's the workout.
Yeah.
There's the workout. There's the workout. I can track my results and seeing where I went. And you and I are both like this, is when you start getting into it, you love it. You enjoy it. You want to keep going.
Yeah.
And you want to keep going. And I'm just, I muted myself here.
I can still hear you.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. I think you muted maybe me on, I could still hear you on my
I got muted. One sec, Sean. Hey,
I can hear, I could hear you the whole time.
Okay. I couldn't hear you.
Okay. That's what I thought.
I have this little like thing that has muted and then the volume went down.
Oh, okay. Okay.
With that, is I'm probably 170, 175 now. So I've lost like 25 pounds. And part of that is because I was lifting and I was getting to like squatting 300-400 pounds, deadlifting like larger weights. And I had pretty good form.
Yeah.
But I did not have perfect form.
Same.
And I hurt myself. And I like hurt my hip flexor. My low back was a little weak.
Same.
Because I didn't have perfect form.
Yep.
And I think this is something where you and I are both pretty good about this. We're both comfortable to go lower the weight, focus on form, and then rebuild.
I've been doing that recently. And I almost think I like it more. Like the workouts are very relaxing. I can go from one thing to the next and do because I started doing lighter weight all around. I kind of was like, I lift because I like being strong and I like having good hormones. It's like better for focus, attention, motivation, sleep.
It all contributes to it.
It's everything. But I did think I was like, well, like lifting higher weights, there's a little more, because I was just like you. I got pretty far over 400 in squats, and I was doing like 5.
That's a lot. That's some
5,
strong thighs right there.
My form was pretty good, but it wasn't perfect, and I wasn't probably getting low enough. I know at like 320, 340 range, I could get low enough. But like, dude, my jeans stopped fitting me. My legs just got bad.
I noticed the same thing, man.
I was thin, but I was still thin. But everything got tight.
Saquon Barkley thighs. Right?
What was that?
Saquon Barkley is like, he's basically a rookie sensation running back in the NFL.
Okay.
And this dude is like the strongest human.
Yeah.
In the NFL. Like you watch his workouts and he's doing like 1,000 pounds.
Dude, it's the opposite of like the bros at bars thinking like you're like this. It's like, dude, because like when I got so I did a lot of labor, and I had my own little demolition company. So like literally for a living for years, like I'd go in, take crowbars and sledgehammers and just break shit.
That sounds really fun.
And I was
really fun.
Like to the point where I was talking to my girl about this the other day, because I was like, there was some video that was like supposed to be impressive about this guy like breaking through a brick, and I was like, that's like the easiest thing. And people think it's like no, dude. Like all you have to understand is like how it's like where its strengths and weaknesses are, and because I had where I'm tearing down a chimney and there's cement on there, so I put a glove on and punch through the brick and break the brick in soft places. Like I'm not punching right through where it's all strong and there's support beams right behind it. But I just break the brick because it's just this little, there's cement disconnected here, and it's not hard. So like I got really good at breaking shit, and that's also just power. Like I'll still swing a sword harder than any fucking motherfucker in a gym because I'm good at swinging shit and breaking shit and seeing the weakness in things. But I will say I already had that kind of like central nervous system like power. I started translating it into lifting because it didn't mean. Like for some reason I wasn't lifting very much, but I was really strong outside of the gym. Like I picked up big things, and we're picking up cement bags all day. Like you get really naturally strong from that stuff. But then I was listening to Mind Pump, and when I think it was Justin, it was all of them. They all did this, but they started talking about translating like that central nervous system strength and having that power, and that's where I started lifting big weights. And I was like, wait a second, with compound like deadlifting, squatting, like I fire just like I'm swinging a sledgehammer, and I just fire this energy through my nervous system, and I pick that shit up. And that totally changed lifting, but it did lead to me like seeing how far I could push it. Like all things, I always want to see how far you push it. And my form wasn't perfect, so I have like a little lower right back, and I had to lower back down. There was somewhere I was going with that. It's the opposite. So what I noticed is like when my legs got big, I realized that all of those other things, like being able to swing shit, being able to push it, if you had to, I don't know why, maybe it's like a weird, disturbing fantasy of mine, throw somebody through a wall. If you had to do that, like in the workplace to like, to like this person shouldn't be your leader, so you throw them through the wall and it all somehow works out, your legs being powerful. Like
you're gonna have some people showing up to work on Monday and throwing people through walls. They'll be like, it's Seeds of Destruction, man. The Seeds of Destruction got to me.
Yeah. As long as, you know what? We're not going to be the types that tell you not to do this at work, just as long as you listen to us in prison.
Oh, my God. There's a comment I was going to make earlier about schools.
Yeah.
Schools and prisons are really similar in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Like they have the same kind of time setup. They have the same kind of lines. They have recess. Like there's a lot of very similar parallels. And like I'm not saying that is the case, but
it's a great time to go to prison right when you get done with school because it's the same thing you're used to, being told what to do all day, following the schedule.
Yeah, I get frustrated by a lot of what people are in jail for because a lot of people are in jail for things like smoking marijuana or for minor possession or for victimless crimes. Yet there are crimes that are white-collar crimes where people literally lose billions of dollars and the guys don't – like no one – guys, men, women. No one goes to jail. There's no repercussions, and that's something that really bothers me about what happened.
Well, maybe it is more guys.
It probably is because unfortunately, if women are running our world,
where a woman like steals millions of dollars from hundreds of thousands of people.
Well, Hillary Clinton is one of those.
Oh,
you think I'm kidding? You think I'm kidding?
I don't think that you're kidding.
Like,
I don't. But we just lost half our listeners.
First of all, if those listeners would take our advice. I am a pro-Trump guy, and I will say that because Trump's been Democrat like his whole life. People,
he grew up in California, man, or he was in California most of it. Very liberal state.
It's not about to me left or right because if you look in history, the left and the right are actually the same thing a lot of the time. They're both financed by the same lobbyist groups.
Hold on, real quick for those of you that haven't shut it off and instantly put your defense.
That was it.
Please. Listen, me and Henry, I'm not pro, like anybody specifically. And it's not because I wouldn't be if I had, wanted to really think about it. It's because people are fucking idiots and you can't communicate a goddamn thing to them if you tell them that you're pro something because you've been institutionalized and programmed to not think about anything else other than what you've been told.
Totally.
So, and you seek out, people seek out only articles, only validation that it's confirmation bias at its finest, and the political system loves and thrives on your idiocy. Again, if we didn't, we lost all of our best.
Ron Paul would have been the best president who was never in office. Ron Paul is a genius.
He's a
medical doctor. He was, I say, 35 years. He was a pediatric doctor. Yeah. I think it's either pediatric doctor or delivery and birth. What's the name of that doctor? Whatever that doctor is.
Oh,
gynecologist. I think I'm pretty sure he's a pediatric doctor for many before he got into Congress.
Yeah.
And the big thing, and we talk about, and this is something I want to focus on at some point because this is my rabbit hole. My rabbit hole is money. My rabbit hole is financial power. My rabbit hole is what is the Federal Reserve? Who owns the Federal Reserve? Who owns the people who own the Federal Reserve? And if you look into this, it's very simple. It's very obvious.
It should be common knowledge.
Well, yeah, but the reason there's 4 factors that I like to think about, and I think this is something you would appreciate, Sean. Mm-hmm. Is number 1, I know, right? Some people they know because they know they learned it somewhere, so they think they know this. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is I don't know. I never learned organic chemistry, so therefore I have no idea what you're saying when you talk to me about carbon.
Yeah.
Number 3 is I know I don't know. So I know that I don't know something because I never learned it.
Yeah.
And number four is my favorite. And there's a word I want to bring into our audience because my guess is no one's heard of this word. But I don't know. So if you've never been exposed to information, there's no way for you to know that information's out there because you've never been exposed to it.
So the majority of the population falls under I don't know that I don't know, but not at an awareness level that they're number 4.
Yes. So here's my word, Sean.
You're usually going to go with number 1 or 2.
Pretty much.
You know what I mean?
And this is where you get into game theory. You get into like for poker, it's like different levels.
Yeah.
But there's this term called nescience. Have you ever heard of this term before?
It sounds familiar, actually, but
I might have told it to you, by the way.
Maybe, probably from you.
Very, very few people have heard this term. And you've heard of the term science, though, right?
It might not. It might be somewhere else. I'm not sure, though.
Have you heard of the term science?
Yes.
Yeah. So science is essentially pursuit of knowledge.
Yeah.
Or knowledge. NE stands for hidden. So hidden knowledge. So a lot of things that are considered hidden knowledge would be like kind of like occult stuff, like tarot card kind of things, astrology. A lot of the times, money, financial education is nescience. There's a lot of things even within.
Nescience is like hidden knowledge.
Nescience is hidden knowledge. Yeah.
Nescience. Okay.
So I love that word. If you want to go to a bar and stump people and want to feel really smart, ask them if they know what the word nescience means. They have their phone, and you plant seeds of destruction because when people realize these things.
The only thing I like to do at bars to stump people with knowledge is I like to read a textbook before going in and be the guy straight out of Goodwill Hunting, just regurgitating a bunch of bullshit and having no original opinion. You know original thought. Because Matt Damon's never at that bar, and I always feel good about myself afterwards.
Yeah, but here the beauty is it's all about confidence. I can go tell you something completely wrong confidently, and you probably believe
I know. It's ridiculous.
It's not good, but it's. Yeah. I'm telling you, nescience is a word, though.
But you feel it when you have like when your emotional intelligence is free flowing, and you're like, you know, like I don't think I have great emotional intelligence, but I feel that I connected with my emotional intelligence, which puts me in society as having great emotional intelligence. But really, like it's just because society's standard for emotional intelligence is at just a rock bottom,
especially for men. Especially for men. I think something that women are significantly better at than men is A, emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
B is the fact that they use both hemispheres of their brain, I think, better than a lot of men do. Not all men.
I'm going to be an asshole and say that I also think that women have shitty emotional intelligence in our culture.
All women, or compared to men, or in general?
In general. Okay. Because I believe that people in general have horrible. And so here's the reason why I think. Well, first off, it could be like wiring, and it could be hormones or whatever. But in our culture, so like most of the differences I believe that you see between men and women is because the culture programmed them differently. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's not their fault. It's only the programmer's fault, right?
Biology is a thing.
Those people that were programmed grow up to be the fucking programmers. So like, just like, you know, like, and by the way, I with the girl, especially like with my girl, like my girl works for a company, and she was never really in leadership before. And she started like, okay, like I want to be a leader and build this. Like, and it was like, I think it was, you know, I have to ask her sometime, but it's kind of inspired by, you know, like seeing me be at service to people every day, because she was never like that super selfish person that like wanted everything for herself. Right. She just isn't wired that way. Mm-hmm. And so seeing that there was another way to be a leader, have like influence and power, but for this to be in service for others was very new. I probably never saw that before, or very, very, not very often. So her, and then my sister is in engineering. She's about to be graduating with a double major, biomedical and mechanical engineering.
Cool.
And, you know, I was just talking to her. I didn't think she ran into this, a bunch of sexism through that. So I do think we have a massive problem with the way we program guys. Cause like you look at any insecure guy in college, and you know how they talk to girls, like don't get me wrong. Like I I flirt with my girl all day. I'll give her crap. She gives me crap back. And it's funny, and we have a good time with it. And like some stupid days, half my fucking jokes are about being a dumb big male. That's like, and she's hilarious. It's taste and flavor, because there's no like, you know, there's no condescending bullshit behind it. But anyways, there are a lot of guys in college that like they learn very early on, like you want to get with a girl, like slam her in different ways, and they'll like say things like oh yeah, and they treat them like, oh, you missed that beer pong shot because you're a girl, and like it's just like, so then the workforce, these guys never fucking grow up, and you see them all over, and they suck. They suck at sales too. The only people they can sell to are other like guys that are like that, and then they meet a business owner like me who sees that they don't listen to the girl on my team, and I don't work with them, and I tell everybody in the community about them. You know, these companies, you know, these like really frat boy companies really suck. And I don't think they're going to thrive at all in the new world. And so anyways, I actually see a massive problem there, where men are perpetuating this fucking issue of like looking at women differently because they're a fucking woman. And it's really frustrating. I 100% see the opposite too, where women are treating men like they're men before you get to know me or my team as a person first. But I think
it's almost a worse problem. But the reason that I think that women in general have better emotional intelligence is because the culture told them that it was okay for them to be feeling what they're feeling most of the time. Not, or some amount much more than it was okay. Men, you know, we were told like, you like almost more like, okay, like the polar opposite of it is men were told like a lot of men, like your emotions aren't really real. They're just emotions. And like, you need to do this, do that, be a man. Where women are told like almost to a frustrating degree, like your emotions and what you're feeling is always real, which I actually like agree with, but there's negatives to both. Because first, one doesn't ever like get to know like their reactional, like emotional system, which is your first reaction to the world around you, you know, mostly. And, you know, besides maybe physical in some such, but then on the flip side of it, if you think that all of your emotions are so real that they have to be real and respected by the whole world, like I've met this men and women that are like this, that basically somebody who goes that far in that far a direction, like having like total belief in their own feelings and that they're all valid feelings, they stomp on everybody else's feelings around them at that extreme end, because you have to. Because if your feelings are all valid, but somebody disagrees with you, then their feelings can't be valid. So there's but in general, I think it's better what women had as far as understanding their emotions. You know, I also think it's better for happiness. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's important to find the balance. And I think this is something that gets lost in the discussion is you think about quantum physics. So let's go binary. Let's say men are 0, or women are 0, men are 1.
Okay.
Right? In quantum physics, the idea is there's no such thing as 0 and 1. There's always a blend between the two. So that's how I like to think about, I don't want to say sexuality, but energy. Every man has feminine energy. Every woman has masculine.
And by the way, the reason he doesn't say sexuality is because there's so many connotations with that word.
Yeah, there's a lot. And it's hard because especially...
I don't know if you guys noticed, but I actually identify as a whale. Specifically, my sexual orientation is whale tail baby.
Whale tail baby?
So when it says ask me gender, like on a medical form, I put whale tail baby. I've been rolling with that for a while. It works for me.
That's pretty good.
I might change it.
I like that. The thing that I see though is I see this like scale between masculine and feminine, and I think women have become more masculine and men have become more feminine.
Yes.
Yeah. And especially in America and in the West. And a lot of it's empowering. A lot of it is women can lead. Women are capable. Women are capable of every single thing a man is capable of.
I won't get into it now. I'm going to just say this real quick. I actually told my girl, Sarah, a while ago, and in general, one of the conclusions that I came through working in leadership is that the average woman right now is more capable of leading than the average man.
I believe that.
Because the average man was told you're supposed to be a leader and you're supposed to be this and you're supposed to be the man. So it's all about them, and not all of them, but it's all about them. And their self-identity is so wrapped up in them being a leader and being a man that they just fucking shit their bullshit on a team. Where a woman's like, I guess a lot, not all, but some women are like, I never really considered being like a big badass leader in a company or a team or something. So their ability to be at service to a team is just that much greater because like, they're like, oh, that's great. Cause like, and also like just that feminine energy is like, I'm at service to my family. I take care of my family, and men and women could be either. Like I make most of the food, right? I like baking food. Like, so I have a lot of feminine practices that would be categorized as that, but I'm a man, you know what I mean? And you know, so.
And it's not a big deal.
Get rid of the connotations behind, because also one of the things that I actually fear is me having an opinion about sexuality and about women, or having even thoughts or ideas in this current volatile culture about women because I'm a man. Because it's like, it's okay in our culture for women to have ideas about men, but it's not okay for men to have ideas about women. And you're basically telling me that
okay. It is okay. The reason it's not okay is because people freak the fuck out when you say things that might offend them.
Of course it's okay. But like,
this is where you have to straddle.
But it's like just as bad as being totally racist, right? It's like, oh, I can't have I'm an infinite human being. Like, you know, I'm a human being.
We're both Caucasian males.
But because I have a penis, I can't, my opinions are seen just as completely shut off about like my experience with women. When really, if you want to change something in society, you need to get the experiences of both genders and the whole spectrum to see what something is and for it to grow and change. Like, so women are being like obviously having oppression in the workforce and men are seeing them as sexual objects. That's a thing. I've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it. Like they're not being seen as human beings first that you respect first.
But who has the real power? Just saying.
Right. I know. Right.
It's really interesting.
We're both smiling because we both probably, unless I'm totally wrong, think it's
we're on the same page. We're on the same page because like I see this in relationships. I see this in structure. And I see a lot of the time is who's actually giving hints or planting seeds of destruction.
Right.
And that's something women are way better at, in my opinion, at playing the game.
In this current culture, yeah.
I think it goes back thousands of years. I think if you look into history, there's a really cool book called 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. And there's a lot of really cool things in there where they have these very strong, powerful women like Cleopatra.
Yeah.
They actually talk about the story of why like women use their own sexuality to get what they want. And if you don't think that's true, you've never been to a bar with cute women. Who do you think? Do you think okay, this is funny because I like to play role reversal. I like to consider myself the prize if I go out. If I'm going to a bar, like first of all, I don't really drink that much. So like
I know you're the prize.
So thank you. And like Sean, you're the prize too, bro. You're the prize too. But it's the mindset is we all should feel that we are the prize. Because if we can't believe in ourselves, who the heck's gonna believe in us?
Right.
And I say that because I get myself, and I tend to argue with women a lot. And I argue with women a lot because nothing about women, but I try to speak logically. And if I speak logically, and this happens to both men and women.
Yeah, it does.
It happens to both women. I'm not saying only with women or only with men, but I am confident in my beliefs with myself where I'm willing to say something totally offensive to someone. And it's offensive to someone because in my experience through what I've gone through, like I've dated women, I've gone out with women, I've had deep conversations with women. I love women to death. I also love men. And I say that because I love all humans. And when you can be a rock, when people are being emotional, you are able to see and feel their energy and people actually appreciate it. A lot of the time, like real quick, a lot of time where, let's say you get a fight with Sarah and she comes home and she says, Sean, you never listen to me. You always do this. And I'm going to come back from my perspective real quick. So one of my girlfriends when I was in high school, college, she's a wonderful woman, very smart, very intelligent. I loved her deeply. I cared for her. And I got really frustrated because she joined a sorority when we were in college. And she would come back and she'd tell me all the wonderful advice that her sorority sisters had given her. And I had given her the exact same advice, like 6 months ago.
Because frat boys and sorority
2 years ago.
So much about the world and how to navigate it.
Of course. But I gave her this logical advice. And the real thing is she didn't want me to give her advice. She wanted me to listen to her and just to be there for her. And that was something that as a younger man, I wasn't necessarily aware of. So it's kind of hard sometimes because are you coming this from your amphibian brain? Are you coming from your mammalian brain? Are you looking from this from your left hemisphere, right hemisphere? And I think what happens to people is they get into one certain way to think that they've grown up thinking. A lot of it's subconscious. And they use that without being able to kind of connect the dots between both of your hemispheres of your brain.
Well, it's communication and knowing yourself. So like, I'm going to take a gander and say what she wanted, whether she knew it or not. And I'm not saying this is men. I feel this way. I'm in sales. Okay. People don't know what the fuck they want.
No.
If there's anything I learned in sales is people, and nobody wants to make a decision. Nobody wants to put, and that's why people like think they want to be leaders. And it's like, you're
no, you don't. No, you don't. You don't want to be a leader.
Like, you're terrified of making a decision. Like, don't tell me you want to be a leader. It's bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, follow a great leader first, and then decide if you want to be a leader. Because if
you're going to be wrong.
If you ever follow a great leader, you're going to be like, man, I would not want to be in their position. Is mostly what you're going to be feeling. And you're going to appreciate them because you're like, they take this brunt for the team of like all the bullshit out there. And, they protect us. And so I'm going to take a gander and say, like most people, especially at that age, don't know what the fuck they want. Don't know what they're really feeling right now. But the difference between men and women, one big difference between men and women in our culture is that
women were encouraged to feel what they're feeling and follow their emotions and think emotionally, which is half of it all. I mean, it's like, if not more.
Your gut knows the answer.
I believe that, I really believe that your emotions are essentially your body, mind, heart, spirit's interpretation of much vaster intelligence from your subconscious and information going on around you. And if you can sift through that, great. What I see most people in our silly culture doing is like, they try to validate their emotions, validate, instead of like taking their emotions as like a language that's speaking to them. Like, oh yeah, I feel that way. That doesn't mean that's what is, but my emotional mind is speaking to me strongly and is smarter than I am in a lot of fucking ways.
Yeah.
And that's like warrior intelligence. That's like spiritual warrior intelligence. It's like, or heart or emotional. I use the word spiritual, not in any
I like
way.
spiritual. I like that.
I use the word spiritual because it's the only word that to me seems to resonate the most for like that kind of like emotional heart intelligence, like that spirit of body and mind. So, but I would take a gander and say that, what she wanted was not for you to solve the problem, because the problem wasn't the problem. The problem was she didn't know how she felt about it, and she wanted the emotions behind it to be eased and figured out. But
it's true.
There's no communication to you for that. So as a young guy, like, you don't know what the fuck's going on, but neither does she.
I find it funny because I grew up and I am the oldest and I have 3 younger brothers. So there's my mom and my dad. So there was very limited females in my life.
Yeah, I had 2 brothers and a younger sister. So it's 3 brothers in my family too.
But you did have that sister.
I did, yeah.
And she's younger, right?
Yeah.
So you got that natural protective instinct, I'm sure, for your sister.
Oh yeah.
And that's something where I never necessarily had that. And I think it actually has made me less, how would I say? It's taken me longer to really understand women. Not that you ever understand women, because I think that's kind of like the beauty of it. But the recognition is sometimes the words someone says don't actually represent what they're trying to communicate. It's the feelings, it's the emotion behind it. And I think part of why you're good at sales is because you're able to kind of ride the unicycle down the middle.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. That's where like not just guys, but so guys are taught to be more logical, right? And I would totally disagree that they're actually really that logical. And I actually think that most men are incredibly emotional beings that don't make logical decisions through their whole life. But it's under the banner of being logical and discerning, right? Because that's what they're taught to do.
Yes.
So, because like not feeling things is actually not logical. Anyways, just a little.
You can't not feel though, because if you don't feel, what are you doing? You're not enjoying it. Like, you're a robot. You're basically going through the motions, and if you're going through the motions, you're not living. And like that's kind of why I left my job, is not necessarily because I wasn't learning a lot. It wasn't because I wasn't doing work, but it was kind of, I see people who have been here for 20, 30 years, and well, guess what? The people were divorced. People were overweight. People had gone through their own negative experiences, and nothing wrong with that. But like, that's been the hardest thing for me dating. And I think because you have a girlfriend and someone you really care about, and I'm single, and part of the reason I'm single is not that I can't meet women,
of course,
or get along with women. No. It's because I want to find my authentic self. I want to love myself fully, because I want to get married. I want to have kids. I want to have a relationship, and I want to have that deep love connection. And if you're not able to love yourself, no matter who you marry, it's not going to be happy. It's going to be you trying to almost solve your own problems by finding those solutions in someone who's figured that out.
Yeah. I will say one thing, loving your, so
it's great to love yourself. So I've always been a little more on the line, like it's got to be for something bigger than me.
Yeah.
Like, and that's to a fault. And I've tried to be like super selfish, been like, and I can do that in competition. Like I'm going to win, but I actually like the ego behind it. I think it's funny. So like, even with like groups of guys, like growing up and later, like, dude, like there's groups of guys that I'll meet, like since I've been in my, mid, late 20s, and I meet them and like, I realize they actually have a really big ego about shit. And it actually is very penetrating and shit. And I'm like, I just thought this whole ego thing, we were all joking about it, but I see it's there. And there's actually like
hurt feelings or whatever. And but it's so I guess the point one thing I was gonna throw out there is like, it's actually very motivating for me to grow and to be vulnerable and to learn myself more and love myself more, because I know that I'm more capable of loving my girl, who I just love. Yeah. And so I will say, to some degree, I feel that has pushed me to greater depths of loving myself. And I think that finding a companion that's really resonates with you, it's not like a time thing. It's just, I believe that it's who the person, and it's not like I need to be at a certain point. I will say there's different points that me and my girl were at where we wouldn't have, we weren't ready for each other.
Timing's important.
Timing is important. Mm-hmm. But I think that at a certain point, it's like, is this somebody who is going to help me to love myself more because I want to love them better? And I think if you can get there, I think a relationship can spur that. You know what I mean? Because I actually have probably some very similar like fears about like relationships, basically preventing me from growing, or like making me think like this, or making me like illogical or like emotional or irrational. And like me and Sarah, me and my girl, we had a bunch of growing pains when we were early together, and been together 2.5 years now. And
has it been that long?
Been that long, yeah.
Dang, because you guys met before you moved out to St. Louis, right? Or Georgia, before Georgia.
Yeah, we met actually St. Patty's Day in Minneapolis. And then we stayed in touch a little bit, but not really. Like, it was actually funny. It was a miscommunication. So
you were the Max, right?
For people, maybe people want to hear like a story about meeting. Yes, I was with Max. I didn't want to go out that night. I found out later Sarah didn't want to go out that night either. And her friends dragged her out. Max dragged me out. We were gambling on sports. I was on a winning streak in like Chinese basketball because like I like playing sports, but I don't follow a lot of sports. So like I'm drinking at this bar and I'm like, hey, could you put on the like Wing Chang Guang game? Like, what? I'm like, I'm sure you got the Chinese basketball on. Yeah. And then like straight face, like, but one of them had it or something. I was like watching it on my phone. I don't remember, but we were drinking like quite a bit. And so I was like on this winning streak, and like, how Max gets when he's like losing and shit. He's like, it's so funny, right? Yeah. But it could not be good later when we're drinking more. But I was like, we go to this bar and I forget, maybe it's like Tavern or something. I forget which one it was. I can picture it though. And we're in the basement, and Max sees this like hot girl, right? And wants to go over and talk to her.
Did he actually go and talk to her?
Yeah, he wanted to go in and talk to that group of girls.
Did he talk to her?
Yeah. Okay. So he said okay, and he was like nervous to do it, right? And then I was like, all right, and I walk over with him, but I'm like plastered, like I'm pretty drunk, and like
I remember because you guys came back to the house later that night.
Yeah, so I don't black out. Like I maybe blacked out like twice in my life, and I'm pretty sure somebody roofied me. So like or accidentally. I'm not saying like anything happened, but I just don't really black out. Like I remember shit. Like I stay very in my verbal fluidity from like sales and just talking way too much to everybody's annoyance around me.
For you, man.
Makes me talk really well when I'm really drunk still usually. So I'm not like slurred. So people don't realize that I'm like completely intoxicated a lot of times. And like there's no limiter because I'm not like worried about like I don't like think about the effect and I'm not going deep into it. I'm just like zing 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 zing, and
but it's not even the words you say, it's how you say them.
It's it. Nobody, and especially at a bar, nobody's listening to that. They're just looking at like and
eyes movement.
So I start talking to Sarah, right? And this shows how drunk I was because I don't remember everything we were talking about. It got real really quick. It got real. We just got really real with each other, and we're just having this super real conversation. And like Max went over to talk to her, and like she like I don't remember what happened, but she like said something, and I like said hi, and then like I'm like, oh, something like that, and then like literally like we started talking, and I just like moved in front of Max and like was just talking to her, and it was like I don't go out to, I never when I was single went out to bars to like hit on girls, never. It just wasn't my thing. I go out to have a good time, and I don't think I should have to go and hit
that on that. Attitude is very important, by the way.
Because I'm interested in girls that are like also like, hey, I want to talk to that guy. And that's generally the girls that I've always liked, because I don't know, I'm more attracted to it. They're independent. They're not playing a role as a female. they've broken through some kind of cognitive barrier where they can come and talk to me because they're interested. It's the same thing. My buddy Isaac's been in a relationship for like 6 years. He met his girl because we were doing, no, I wasn't there for this. I was there a different time when they were early. But he was dancing, same bar. He was dancing, and we always dance like crazy together. And this girl was literally sitting there buzzed, and she just goes, I want to be with that guy. Like, that was her thought. I want to be with that guy. I've never seen a guy have more fucking fun. And so she just like went up to talk to him. And
that's what it is, though.
It's so cool.
Having fun.
Well,
it's
and that's
enjoying yourself.
So I guess a guy, it sucks because when you're this type of guy more, all these guys that are like very into like manipulating women and shit. But like my thought has always been like, I don't want to be with a woman that I like trick into being with me or manipulate or like am like, oh, trying to be this role as a guy, like puffing my chest out and like, Like, don't get me wrong. I do that in the kitchen every fucking day when I make food, right? But I'm just saying, like, it's like sarcastically funny because it's so ridiculous, right? But I never, but like, if you get girls like that, they're never going to be like somebody that you're probably going to be really deep with because you're not being yourself to get them. You know what I mean? So you're not like letting, and like, I think that most women are very intuitive at who they're attracted to.
Attraction's not a choice.
There's like an attractive law there that's just like there. But what a lot of men in our culture do is they figure out how to manipulate that and like basically trick women into being attracted to them when they're not really naturally attracted to them. You know what I mean? They're not.
I think there's a balance though, because
I agree.
The exact same thing between two people can be completely different. Like two people can say the exact same line in the exact same body language, but are they being authentic? And I think what like you said, you and Isaac, is you guys are just going out and having that fun.
That's what I mean. If
you can't fake that. You can't fake that because even if you're doing it to like quote unquote fake being fun, the fact you're fake being fun is funny in itself. Which is then like it's like that. It's the Lamacet. It's infinite. Like, I have the same logic as like I'm not really ever worried to talk to anyone. Like I've been rejected probably more than like anyone in the world because I just go up and say fun shit that I enjoy. And I'm one of those people who like I see like women's shoes and I'm like, how have you been walking for the last 2 hours in those? Like, I just don't understand. I'm like curious. So I'm like, and I ask questions that I legitimately am like, I want to know or I want to find out more about you. And like I was at the dog park this morning and I was playing around and playing with Akila, just throwing a tennis ball and like playing fetch, and there's a woman. I started talking to her and she had a friend and I ended up talking to her friend, and all of a sudden there's like a fence between us because there's in the dog park there's like a under 20-pound park and there's an over 20-pound park. So I always go to the.
You know why that is? That's to keep the small dogs, the small vicious dogs, separate from the big dogs, so that
they'll get their ass kicked.
Bully them. Yeah, because
the small dogs usually have the ego to bully, and that's another thing. But I'm saying here, and I'm saying the other side of the spectrum, and she and I were just talking, and like I'm sharing things about myself that are kind of vulnerable. Like I was talking about things, and I was like, I really like we were talking and we look each other's eyes, and it was kind of really cute in a lot of ways. And I was like, hey, like I'd like to get to know you a little bit more. And she was like, hey, like I'm going through a lot right now in my life. Like I'm moving to Spain for work for some things. I'm helping my mom sell her house. Like I'm pretty busy and I don't want to like overpromise. And I told her, I'm like, hey, like I'm not offended if you never talk to me again in my life. Like regardless, I've enjoyed our conversation. And like, I'm one of those people's like, here's my number if you're interested. And we ended up talking for like 10, 15 more minutes afterwards and just like really great conversation where like, her friend, you know how like sometimes if you're at a bar and you're having a conversation and like it's not going well, the girlfriend's going to come be like, excuse me, like we got to go because women are intuitive.
I would also say if it's going well, that happens.
Well, because
because actually that's what happened with my girl we're like going and she's like, yeah, we're like all into each other. And then her friends are like, uh-oh. Like, and I think it was fair because they're like wondering, is she drunk? And like, we don't know this guy.
Of course.
Trying to take advantage. So actually it's fair. So like, I gave her my number.
Yep.
And like right when I was like, well, here, I'll give you my number. Cause I just knew better than to try to get her number or whatever. So I give her my number and she goes like this and she right away like smiles and goes, okay. And like shook her friends off to get my number. So it's like, it was like, clearly this is what we both wanted. Yep. And her friends were like, you know, and Maxwell was like talking to her friends the whole, I don't know what they talked about to like engage them. Cause you know, like, kind of like classic bro moves, like, oh, I'm gonna gauge the friends so that you have more time. It's like, yeah, but they see right through that shit.
Of course,
man.
they know that.
Like you just gotta be honest. But so to wrap that actually story up is that so I gave her my number and I just like knew 100% that she's gonna text me and we're gonna talk. And so Max later that night, so I'm on a Chinese basketball winning streak. Max is not. He's on losing streak of something else. So he makes me like a $30 bet. Like they never. We totally throw Max on the bus on this podcast. She's like they never call you back if you give them your number. And I'm like, that's not true.
That's not true.
I was like, I was like, that's not true at all. And I was like, I guarantee you, she texted me back. He's just like, I guarantee not. I was like, I bet she texted me back tonight. Right. And he's like, if she even did, it'd be like tomorrow. Nah, $30 says she doesn't. And I go, okay. And I shake his hand. I pull my phone out of my pocket. There's already a text there from her from literally like a minute or two ago. And he's like, you saw that already. I was like, no, I did not. Like, I never look at my phone when I'm hanging out.
You guys know that you came back that night super intoxicated. And I had work the next morning. I fucking yelled at you guys. Because you got back.
Oh, you did. That's right.
I remember seeing you both. I remember this story. Because I was sober. Like, I didn't go out at all.
No,
and I remember this.
We were being unthoughtful assholes.
Well, no.
We were doing like I was doing like Russ.
You guys were loud. You were fighting.
Impressions in the room too, like joking around. I think, unless that was a different night.
Well, there's been a few of those nights, so I'm not sure which is which. But I remember him talking about that bet. I remember him talking about that bet. And he's like, I can't believe it. I bet Sean, and like instantly Sean got texted, and I remember just laughing. And I remember going out with Max one time, and like I love him to death.
I love him to death.
But Max also has a little ego, as humans do, and like we all do, and like we both have, and I think we both evolved from it a lot. But we still have that; it's still powerful. And I remember there's a really cute woman he saw, and I was like, oh, like that's awesome. You should go talk to her. And he's like, well, like I'm not really sure. She might have a boy. Like whatever.
Hey, and I don't know unless you find out.
You don't know if you find out. I'm like, okay, like, give me a minute. And I went over and started talking to her, and was basically like, hey, like my buddy thinks you're cute, and like I love to get your number for him because I think you guys would get along well. And she's like, okay, like cool. He seems cool, and like we talked to her before for a little bit. It wasn't the first time.
Yeah.
And I got her number, and I was like, hey Max, like here's her number. He's like, I'm not gonna take that.
Oh, because you got it for him?
Because I got it for him. And I was like, no, like. I'm not interested, man. Like, I have no problem meeting people. Like, I teach yoga. Like, there's a lot more women than men in yoga. Like, that's not.
Well, it's like however it comes together for you to build relationships or friendships with people. The other thing is,
my wife.
Like, because the majority of men in America, I think, are pretty shitty. I do, and this comes from a guy who's, this is not the most important part of this, but I've been in leadership. And I really give a shit about like my people in it, with whatever team I'm in, to the point where I keep relationships with people I worked with. Like I'm still not completely, cause I want them to step into their own leadership, but like play like a little bit of a mentor role to reach out to, like when they're working with their own team and stuff here and there. Right. But more importantly, like, I had a baby sister. And I know what I want for her. You know what I mean? From a young age, I knew what I wanted for her. So like I was in a lot of relationships through the years. Like, I'd maybe take 6 months off, like a year where in between 3 months, I don't know. But I just found myself in a lot of relationships until I was a little older. And I started like just not really wanting that or being really selective of who I wanted to be with and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think the majority of guys are shitty. I think the best practice and most easy and fun and practice that will make them very successful if they're just interested in being with women. And I don't just mean sex, but just like they want female attention. For a guy to start doing that's out there is become friends with like 5 times more girls than you date or try to do anything with.
I agree.
I mean, just become friends, because it's like, like women will never fully understand men in a lot of ways, and men will never fully understand women in a lot of ways. The only way for you to like really know shit is to like be friends and have relationships with women. You know what I mean? And
the best teacher.
Yeah. And there's this empathy that goes with that, where like, you're like, like what, you know, me and my girl, like we'll talk about like I have learned so much, not just from, but so much from my girl, more than anybody else. Cause like just understanding like past life, family dynamics, and like having empathy for that, and like being a woman, and like thinking just the world's very different. And, you know, that being said, if you're friends with more girls than you are trying to like hook up with them or whatever, hooking up is like the stupidest thing you could be trying to do all the time.
Taboo too.
Yeah, it's very taboo, and it's like, don't think that every girl doesn't see right through it. That being said, some guys it might be fine because that's the kind of person that they're looking for all the time. For me, I never went to go when I was single, like to meet women, like to be like, oh, I want to hook up right now. I mean, I'm sure I did at some point, but it wasn't like that attractive to me. Also, like the whole thing where if they have like a boyfriend, like to me, like here's the thing. So somebody like they want sex or whatever, but to me, if somebody a girl who has a boyfriend like gives me her number and is like interested in stuff, I'm actually just not as attracted to her, not because she has a boyfriend, but because she doesn't know what she wants. And because she's not transparent and honest about what she wants with the people that are allegedly closest to her, which it makes her an unattractive person to me. Mm-hmm. And I can do better, a lot better. You know what I mean? So to me, like the sexual, like any kind of like sexual tension or attraction is like gone when there's like deceit and like, because to me it's like I think it's like that old religious like moral. It's not really morals, but it's like ethics, like a mode of operating. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to do that. That kind of comes into play, but it's like people feel like they have to like lie and deceive people to be who the fuck they are. Where like to me, I would be much more attracted back in the day to a woman who's like, look, I don't do boyfriends. Like if I want to sleep with somebody, I do. I'm a lover. I like connecting with people. I hope one day I'll find that person that I only want to be with them, maybe, or I don't want that person in my life. And they're fully transparent. Like I might actually at some point have been attracted to that.
I love that. You know? I think
yeah. Yeah. And I think I would imagine that girls could say the same thing about, there's more connotations. Like, well, with a woman, it's like, oh, you're a slut for being like that. With a man, it's like, oh, you're just trying to be a player. Yeah. Well, but it's like, if you're being honest about what you want and transparent, and you're sharing yourself with people, not, you know, some version of yourself to like manipulate them into like liking you. Like you're going to attract what's right for you when you're in your being yourself. Or you might have a couple like, you know, predators come after you, whether you're a guy or a woman, who's like, they want to take advantage of this like open spirit or, you know, I don't know, but you're going to know it right away. You're going to feel it. You're going to be like, nah.
You see it all the time. And especially like I go out to the bars more and more often. No, not to the bars necessarily, but when I go out, I don't really drink. So a big thing with going out, not drinking, you're a lot more coherent and understanding, cognitive of what's actually in your environment. Yeah. And for a long time, I always kind of got frustrated when I was younger, when I was in college, because here I am, I consider myself a nice guy. I want to get married and I want to have kids, and I see this type of relationship. And I would get frustrated because I'd see men be complete assholes to women, and the women would always just go to that guy all the time. And it would happen over and over again in college parties. It would happen. And then a lot of it was social status. And a lot of it was the same. I like the Pareto principle, which is 20% of people, or 20% of your action gets 80% of your results. And I see that in the relationship with men and women as well, where 20% of men end up with 80% of the women because of social status, because of, it's like an accomplishment for, and I'm not saying all women, obviously, but like for a certain group of women, they probably compare with their friends. Like, oh, like I met this famous rapper or this famous athlete. And it's almost like a competition with them because there's only so many high status males because of what you were saying. There's not many leaders because it takes a lot of risk. It takes a lot of like, I could die to go get food. That's why I get the benefit of being the first person to eat, or that's why I have this high social status. Yeah. It's because of the risk you're taking. And it's intimidating for most men to talk to women.
Yeah.
And that's something that kind of in a relationship status, obviously there's been people who've been having kids for tens of thousands of years. So like
all of our ancestors got laid.
Yeah.
That was shower thoughts. Like, so all of our ancestors got laid then.
Yes.
Shower thoughts.
Yeah. Shower thoughts. Planting seeds, destructive seeds.
Yeah. Dude, it is interesting. I'm sure over the podcast we'll touch on this stuff because I do think that like obviously like more men need to hear about like, okay, because you look into like talking about meeting women from men and it's a bunch of con artists, pickup artists. It's like, fuck you. You got to be yourself.
I've read those books. I've read those books before.
Right.
I'll say that.
Well, it's like whatever. So I had a different scenario because I had like girlfriends from a really young age. And like, honestly, like I look pictures, I wasn't a good looking kid. I had this crazy long hair and I just looked like a little kid that ate like would throw a pizza at you or something. That's kind of what I looked like.
Okay, wait.
You know,
Sean.
Yeah.
Remember elementary school?
Yeah.
You know how like a lot of the time guys and girls kind of like separate a lot?
Yeah.
Like the boys would hang out and the girls would hang out. Yeah. Yet there would be that girl who'd run all the way across the playground in the cold, in the snow to tell you you're ugly.
Right. Right.
She did all this work just to make fun of you.
Every winter. And
the two options you can take it are, oh, I'm ugly. Right. Or that girl just went all the way across the whole playground, through the snow, through the dodgeball, through the tetherball. There's some danger in this. You got to watch out when we're playing tag over here. To come make fun of me.
Go around dinosaurs.
Is she there to make fun of me or is she there to court my attention?
Right.
And this is an area that I've been very observative of in my life because I get made fun of by women all the time. And women question me and they ask me questions and they'll sit and talk to me for 3 hours. It's a test, man, because it's like when dude, you will not be in a happy relationship where people aren't happy if you can't make fun of each other. You know what I mean? It's like, because it's like there's very few things like my girl has found like I'm a baby, right? There's some things like there's layers, right? So, but like at heart, I'm like very rarely offended by anything. And I'll like play the baby card and be like, oh, like you think that? Or I'll like, I don't know, my girl's talking a million different ways, right? So like I'll play this like card like, oh, like you want to do this? Or like I'll say something like, or I talk in the third person. There's a show called Dragon Ball Z with this character called Boo. And he's like, Boo hungry. You know what I mean? And I do that shit all the time. Like I'm thirsty.
I get really annoying and I'm like, Boo hungry. Like I'm just like the most annoying person to like be with probably at this point. But it's like funny. But
Humor. Be funny.
Yeah, and she had two sisters. She didn't have any like and a pretty feminine dad. So she didn't have any like men in her life, like not much masculine like energy to like learn from in her life. So like at first I think she thought like there's like sensitivities here, but then it's like when you break it down, it's like, no, I'm good. Like I feel, and I like, it's all just a joke and like sarcasm and like stupid little manipulation because I want to get what I want. But like really, like if you're totally against that, I'd be like, all right, yeah, I'm being a baby. That's fair. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think like, especially what I remember is like when girls like give you shit at a bar and they like push you and you're just like, yeah, like I'm a big dummy sometimes, but not always. But because it's more fun, girls are like, wait a second, what the fuck? Like, you're not.
He can handle.
You're actually secure because I've been with like 6 guys that read books on how to appear to be secure to women. And like, here's the difference. And this is not just with like attraction to men and women, but life in general. When you know. And you know what that is. It's like it's like in a dream. Okay. And when you don't know, you're trying to figure out if you think you know, but you're still trying to figure it out. If you're being honest with yourself. It's like a dream though. Like I have a lot of weird dreams where I wake up out of my bed and I start moving around. I'm like, oh, and I don't know. Like I'm waking up. I think I'm just tired. I don't know. But then I actually wake up out of the dream and I'm like, I wake up in the same bed that I just dreamed I woke up in. This happens to me a lot. And I know I'm awake. I feel that way with like attraction. It's like when you meet somebody that you're truly like attracted to, you're like, I know that I'm attracted to this person.
Oh, period. 100%.
It's intoxicating and it's palpable.
100%.
You know what I mean?
So this is one of my biggest challenges going to the bars. Because first of all, I try to find attraction every single person out there. I try to find attraction.
We should record a podcast at a bar sometime.
Okay.
And like do a camera like this and just like call out. Like, dude, this would be a really fun podcast to do. Like every once in a while, just be like the bar people watch like episode and like point at people and like go back and edit it later because we'll know who we're talking about. You know what I mean? And circle the person and like just make up a bunch of shit about them. Like, and then with some people, like go up and ask them and be like, so we're doing a show. So from a distance, we wanted to get an idea of what we thought about you. We thought you were cool. You know, and so I was guessing that you work in some kind of sales capacity, but in a corporation that probably has more than like a couple thousand people. And you either live in downtown or in this area, and you're probably like 29 and this is this. How accurate are we about these things? We can both have our own assessments and like just compare with people. You know what I mean? And like, dude, that would be I would watch that shit if two guys were doing that.
I do that. Oh, here's the things also.
So
then we can add people as we go out to come join us.
Yeah.
We can do because we need a female perspective on this. We
we do. We totally do.
And
I want a female that can sit there and like read people. Actually, my girl.
Most can.
My girl could probably do that. Yeah.
Well, I gotta come out to California soon. Then
You come out of California, we'll do it here, and then come back in Minneapolis.
my life is very. I'm selling my house right now, so I'm knock on wood on that. I'm not really. I had a showing today. I had 4 yesterday. I've had 2 offers fall through, which has not been the best, but it's been an experience of learning. But like for me, it's about freedom. It's a lot of work, and I'm honestly a little bit over it. And I also see a really cool paradox I just noticed, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you have like a nice light background and a dark sweater, and I have this super dark background and a red shirt. And we're definitely like seeds of destruction. There's some yin yang shit right here.
Yeah. No, hell yeah, dude.
I'll be honest.
We're yin yang about a lot of things, actually. I've been. We'll get into it more in a different podcast, but
dude, we have 3. I should be going here soon. It's been 3 hours and 10 minutes on this podcast.
Hell yeah. And I love the long form.
Do we want to hear real quick? I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna pause and stop recording.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna do that right now. Do we want to do? So we're done recording now. Okay.
Okay, gotcha.